unless the contact and the combat and the fighting gets too intense. We see one car go up on the hook. We motion everybody together. We approach the start of this contest. Maybe one more lap before we go to green. One last chance to get these guys off the racetrack. We watch the pace cars and head southbound. Still another lap or so to go before we go to green. 28 drivers start this race. Another 40 or so have a chance to take part as we move to the ultimate figure 8 challenge of the Indianapolis Speedrome. Watch for the start of this race the next time by. As in any figure 8 race, Kenny St. John, the part that gets the most attention is the crossover. But the single most dangerous part of the race is the headlong, full-powered run into that right-hand turn. There is more trouble in turn 1 than there is in the crossover.
That's kind of unnatural for a car to make a right-hand turn like that. These guys got to compromise. They have to turn left all night. They also have to turn right. They restrict them up, compromise with the middle. They're all wanting to get a good start here, get settled in, maybe run off the first 50 or so without any kind of incident and get this thing on the road. I think we're ready.
After 1 year's planning, after 1 year's preparation, it comes down to this. Out of turns number 3 and 4, we bring the field to the start of the 3-hour figure 8 endurance race of the Indianapolis Speedrome. The track champion, Dwayne Lee, charges to the early advantage. Pole sitter Wayne Arnold drops back into second place in the number 12 car. In third place, you've got the number 3 of Charlie Reed, already challenged by the fourth place number 7 of Ronnie Clunt. In fifth place, you've got the number 2 of Mike St. John. Sixth place is the number 5 of Bill Finney Jr., challenged by the seventh place number 6 of Jack Dawsey Jr. Eighth place is Leonard Basherman, car number 9. Ninth place is the number 9 of Kenny Sizemore. And already going one lap down is the number 2X of Jerry Whitten, who took an extra northbound loop as the fireworks are displayed at the Indianapolis Speedrome as we work into the third lap of this 3-hour race. Already cars caught on the crossover. The number 61 of Cecil Carr, the number 30 of Guy Strode. At the intersection, the close encounters begin as the leaders charge through headlong without any concern for those that are going crosswise. By Indianapolis Speedrome standards, a major advantage for Dwayne Lee as he leads Wayne Arnold by about 4 car lengths, going into lap number 4 in the second minute of this 3-hour race. Watching the intersection as there's Charlie Reed charging up on Wayne Arnold and Ronnie Clunt and Mike St. John in as Arnold had to hold up for another car that was at the crossover. Battle for second place engaged as we move into the second minute of this race. Somebody is leaking a lot of oil or water on the track, and let's see which car it is. It is the number 33 of Doug Gregg. We see a lot of smoke from that car. It is Doug Gregg's number 33 has a major oil leak. Blue smoke from this car. Oil all over the track as they charge into the first turn. Will all the leaders manage to go over this oil hazard and survive? The answer is yes, but Doug Gregg is out of the race with a big oil leak for the number 33. And this young driver's frustrations continue in the Indianapolis Speedrome. Kenny St. John, as we see Doug Gregg coming into the pit area, and we see Charlie Reed slowing down as he had to avoid cars in the crossover and losing positions for the number 2 of Mike St. John. What is that oil on the racetrack going to do in these early laps?
Oh, it's awful hard shooting down in that number 1 right now. These guys have seen it for a couple laps. They're going to make some adjustments. I noticed Wayne fell back a couple spots. I think the 33's got a serious motor problem.
We also noticed that Robbie Loving in the number 16 has already gone one lap down. He got caught by crossover traffic, decided to make an extra northbound loop, and is already in trouble. We see alternates have already joined the races. The number 20 of Jolo has to make an extra northbound loop as he was caught off by about 6 cars running in that lead pack. We a crossover crash. Danny Turner colliding with the number 24, Curtis McMurtry. Danny Turner in the camera car. A big wreck that has broken the radiator, and now McMurtry almost hit by the number 116 car, and now he's hit by the number 140 car of John Dawsey. 2 cars involved in this crossover crash. A major part of a bumper bar deposited in the crossover as McMurtry pulls away and Dawsey tries to back his car off the racetrack. But will continue to run under green. The lead as we move into the third minute of the first hour of this race still belongs to the number 1 of Dwayne Lee. But here we have the number 2 of Mike St. John charging up to challenge. A crossover crash between the number 44 car, that's the 44 of Danny Gaddis, and the number 22 of Boyd Butcher. Butcher's car keeps on going. Gaddis's machine is stalled and facing the wrong direction. As we continue to run under green, we see that the battle is engaged for the lead.
Debris.
as we see the cars trying to avoid that piece of bumper bar that stuck in the middle of the crossover that was ripped off the cars in that earlier crossover crash. 3 drivers continue to challenge for the lead. The number 1 of Dwayne Lee, the number 2 of Mike St. John, and the number 12 of Wayne Arnold run first, second, and third. In 4th place, I'll give that to the number 3 of Charlie Reed. And now as the things start to really happen there, the number 44 car of Gaddis is still facing the wrong direction as we've got that big bumper bar in the middle of the crossover. 3 drivers battle for the lead. Dwayne Lee has led every lap so far in the number 1. Mike St. John has come from his 6th starting position to 2nd place. Wayne Arnold from the pole has dropped back to 3rd. Now as Dwayne Lee stops at the crossover and Wayne Arnold runs over the bumper bar, the lead goes to Mike St. John just as the first yellow is displayed. We display the yellow maybe a bit too late for Wayne Arnold, and the pace car has to go out and pick up the leader, and that leader is Mike St. John. And the pace car is almost hit by the number 3 of Charlie Reed, who's trying to storm up and pick up some positions.
The Wayne Arnold car, the number 12, did hit the bumper bar in the front. I hope he didn't get no damage, but you never know.
So we go to yellow for the first time tonight. We'll go out first to Gaddis number 44 as the driver gets out of the machine. He'll look at the damage to his car where it was hit by the number 22 of Boyd Butcher. Butcher just bounced off Gaddis' car like a basketball and kept on going, but Gaddis' machine stalled and facing the wrong direction. Kenny St. John, maybe no other driver in the history of this track has felt the sting of the crossover more than you.
No, unfortunately, I haven't been roughed up in that crossover very many times, but they're off to a good, clean start here. We got a couple guys. The 87 car lost the radiator. I know that team. They'll probably put one back in there and be on the next few minutes, but I think they're going to settle into a pace. The 2 cars seem like it come to the front very easy. The 1 car kind of backed up to him. We're going to see what happens. The KG veteran Wayne Arnold sitting there just biding his time.
The circumstance developed that when Dwayne Lee, who had led every lap of the race up to that point, had to slow down for heavy crossover traffic, Mike St. John flew on through. Let's try and set your lead lap group. We have been watching so many developments around the track up to this point. We had not had a chance to analyze where the drivers were running. The leader is the number 2 of Mike St. John. 2nd place is the number 1 of Dwayne Lee. And 3rd place is the number 12 of Wayne Arnold. Then you go back a bit to the 4th place, number 3 of Charlie Reed. 5th place, the number 5 of Bill Tenney Jr. I'll give 6th place to the number 9 of Leonard Bastion, 7th place to the number 7 of Ronnie Quantz, 8th place I'll show to the number 6 of Jack Dawsey Jr., 9th place to the number K9 of Kenny Sizemore, 10th place to Jeff Heiser's 18, 11th place to Bear in the number 16, 12th place and dropping back to the number 4 of Bruce Tunney. I'll give 13th place to the number 116 of Rance Harmon, 14th place to the number 14 of Fry, and I'll count those as the drivers on the lead lap. Already we have had these alternates come to the racetrack. We've got the number 27 of Eddie Deal out there as the first alternate. Second alternate, Danny Gaddis, lasted only a handful of laps before he got in the crossover crash with the number 22 of Boyd Butcher. John Welliver is on the racetrack and rolling in the number 17. He's the 3rd alternate. 4th alternate, Jack Dandy in the 08. We locked for him, and he's on the racetrack running with Kenny Sizemore for the time being. And we also have the 5th alternate, Larry Berger, on the track. That means that the 6th alternate, Pat Pierce, will be coming out shortly, along with 7th alternate Jerry Brown, and Ray Gaddis will have to hold up the family name in the number 779 because Danny Gaddis is gone.
I really wasn't watching that number 4, the tickets up front car, but I'm sure he started a little bit closer to the front. Must have got roughed up in traffic or something. He's going to have to pull his way all the way from
Definitely has dropped back several positions. Bruce Tunney started this race in 8th place. To give you an idea of how things have changed, Bruce Tunney in the 4 started side by side, nose to tail with his brother Bill Jr., the number 5. Notice that Bill Jr. has moved up into the top 5, while Bruce Tunney has dropped back into the 3rd 5, actually closer to the end of the lead lap than the front of the lead lap. We glance as we see Curtis McMurtry's 24 coming back onto the racetrack. He was involved in the first crash of the night, managed to keep on going, and the number 30 of Guy Strode also rejoins the race. We have not seen Doug Gregg come back after pumping out what seemed like gallons of oil onto the racetrack. I noticed, Kenny St. John, that the streaks of oil that had manifested the problems with the number 33 car have now disappeared. Have those big wide tires picked it up?
Well, I'm pretty sure the tires are running it in, but it's still a little greasy down through there. I don't know what happened with the motor. Maybe he punched a hole in the oil pan, what have you. But like you say, he punched out a whole bunch of the motor oil.
And now we're set for the restart. The second beginning of this race with the green flag displayed. We'll have lap number 17 underway and be midway through the 8th minute of the first hour of this race. Coming out of turn number 3 and 4, we bring them down for one more lap under caution. I was anticipating the restart that time. So was everybody else on the racetrack, but Carl Hall, the starter, stands his ground on the tower and decides to send them around one more time.
What did 16 qualify at? The 116?
Looking at Rance Harmon on the racetrack, he has pretty much held his ground for the time being. Harmon qualified in 19th place, farther back than we're used to seeing this former champion qualify at the Indianapolis Speedrome. He has moved up a few positions, but he has not moved up that far in the scoring order. He's near the back part of this pack and has to be careful he doesn't go a lap down. Robbie Loving has gone a lap down, not because of performance, but because he got caught out at the crossover and had to make an extra northbound loop to keep from being smashed by about a half dozen cars. Here we are going into the 9th and 10th minute of this race. Pace vehicle brings them all the way down to the start-finish line. Carl Hall plays it cool, and once again, no start. I'm not 100% sure what the circumstance is, whether the starters want everybody to line up 2 by 2, or Carl Hall is simply making sure that these drivers do not outguess them. Now, I understand, Kenny St. John, from some sources that occasionally drivers will actually not wait for the starter's command, that they'll try to jump the start, that they'll try to pick up 3 or 4 or 5 positions by cheating at a restart. Of course, you wouldn't know anything about that, would you?
You said the word cheating. I'm sure these guys don't do anything like that. They might interpret the rules different than some people. They're going to try to anticipate the start and go with it.
Yeah, I understand that you were known for your creative interpretation of the rules over your speedrome career, weren't you?
That's the interpretation of the rules. That's my case, and I'm going to stick with it.
How many of those arguments did you win?
Never. I didn't like to play.
Here we are with the restart. Working in the 11th minute of the race. Dwayne Lee gets the whole shot on Mike St. John and brings them to the lead as they start lap number 19. And Dwayne Lee gets back to the lead by anticipating the start. Wayne Arnold finds himself in a battle for 3rd place, which he loses to Charlie Reed. As Wayne Arnold starts to inch backwards, you wonder if his car was hurt by that bumper bar collection. So far, no indication of such, although he is starting to lose a few positions. No, it's not Wayne Arnold dropping back. It's Charlie Reed moving up. The winner of a figure 8 race a couple of weeks ago in the Indianapolis Speedrome has picked up about 5 spots on this restart, and he is gunning for Dwayne Lee. Charlie Reed holds on to the 2nd spot. 3rd place is now the number 5 of Bill Denny Jr. Your 4th position goes to the number 9 of Leonard Basham. In 5th place, the number 2 of Mike St. John. 6th place is the number 12 of Wayne Arnold. 7th place is the number 7 of Ronnie Pons. 8th place is the number 6 of Jack Dawsey Jr. I'll give 9th place to the number 18 of Jeff Heiser, and 10th place to the number 116 of Rance Harmon. 11th place to Kenny Sizemore. 12th place to Bruce Tunney, and I score Bruce Tunney in the 4th car, the last driver on the lead lap. And of course, Tunney is running a 12th. He qualified in 9th. Dwayne Lee, the crossover, watches out for several cars as he comes through. And now Robbie Loving and Charlie Reed almost have a confrontation in the crossover. That would have spelled disaster. Dwayne Lee looks for room in the crossover, holds up, several cars charge through, and Dwayne Lee just barely makes the gap, and so does Charlie Reed. Kenny St. John, it's starting to get dangerous as he also number 16 of Fred Bear get caught by some guys in spin. He's going the wrong way on the racetrack as everybody goes through, and Fred Bear cannot stay on the lead lap. Fred Bear also has a flat tire, and he must go to the pit area. Dwayne Lee hits the brakes to survive in the crossover. There's Charlie Reed charging through, taking advantage, going to 1st place in turns number 3 and 4 of the 25th lap into the middle of the 13th minute of this race. Charlie Reed is starting from his starting position, number 4, to take the lead. The 3rd leader in 12 minutes. Trouble in turn number 1 as the number 19 car, one of the ultimates, Pat Pierce, collects the number 5 of Bill Tunney Jr. and Leonard Basham in the number 9. All of those drivers get restarted, but Tunney has lost valuable ground. Now Charlie Reed cuts through the intersection and has to slow down. He might have, I'm not sure if Charlie Reed's got a flat tire developing on one side or not. Maybe it was just the way that car was rolling. We'll find out here shortly. Charlie Reed has the advantage. He goes into turn number 3, but here's Dwayne Lee once again trying to get back what is his, and we notice the number 87 of Danny Turner has moved back onto the track after repairing that broken radiator. Charlie Reed holds on to the advantage. No flat tire. We just simply saw the car roll farther than we're used to seeing it roll. 2nd place is the number 1 of Dwayne Lee. Challenges in the intersection. Both drivers have to make moves in order to survive. Good battle for position number 3 between the number 2 of Mike St. John to the number 12 of Wayne Arnold. And I think the number 9 of Kenny Sizemore has gone a lap down. I don't think he's moved up that far, or has he? I don't know, because Kenny Sizemore has really moved up into that lead pack, and I think he's done that on the merits. I think that some of that confusion, Kenny St. John, that Kenny Sizemore took advantage of that. He's moved up to what I believe is 5th place.
Now, if you watch the red number 1 with the Dwayne Lee in there, he busted a lot of traffic early. The first 7-8 minutes he's been out there on the hump. But if you'll notice, the 2 car and the 12 cars caught up with him. I don't know if Dwayne Lee come back to him or they went and got him. But I've got an eye on the number 2 and 12. It looks like they're running a cagey race to me.
4 drivers battle for the lead with a crowded crossover in front of them. Dwayne Lee holds on to the advantage. Now Mike St. John runs to the 2nd place around the number 1 of Dwayne Lee. In 4th place is the number 12 of Wayne Arnold. I'll give Kenny Sizemore 5th place to the number 9. At the crossover, let's look for the 5th place car. It's the number 7 of Ronnie Klontz, who qualified 3rd in this race. Then you've got the 18 of Heiser, the number 5 of Bill Finney Jr., the number 9 of Rance Harmon. At the crossover, watch out, Kenny Sizemore for the first time lost ground in that crossover and now falls back into the clutches, the number 7 of Ronnie Klontz. Heavy traffic in the intersection. Watch out for several cars there as Mike St. John goes to the inside of Wayne Arnold, who sneaked through into position number 3. Another alternate appears to be ready to come onto the racetrack. We've had a crash out there, another one involving Curtis McMurtry's number 24. It looks as if him and Ozo Hoosier and the 12X have gotten together. McMurtry's car a foot shorter as he continues to race. He's got the rear end of that car ripped up and it's only bodywork damage. So McMurtry, like a true figure-8 driver who doesn't drop out of the race until the wheels fall off and then still tries to make 3 laps, McMurtry keeps on going. Only Ozo Hoosier's car damage prevents him from racing any further. Looking for the leader before the going nose to tail through traffic as we work to the 15-minute mark of the first hour of this 3-hour race. The leader is the number 3 of Charlie Reed as they come to a crowded crossover, which empties just in time for the leaders to go through at full power. 2nd place is what? Jeff Heiser in trouble. The number 18 drops off the racetrack. That was the guy that was running in the lead group, and he is completely out of it now. Charlie Reed is number 3. Chargers in the crossover, followed by Mike St. John. The car of Wayne Lee and Wayne Arnold in 4th place. Then in 5th place, you've got the number 7 of Klontz. I'll give 6th place to the number 9 of Arnold. 7th place I will give to the number 5 of Bill Finney Jr. Watch out in the crossover as the number 19 car almost ran into the number 116. That was the Pat Pierce almost running into Rance Harmon, but somehow they keep on going. It was the 16th minute of this race, and it gets more exciting any moment. Charlie Reed hesitates the crossover. Mike St. John goes through on the inside and takes the lead. At the crossover, it's the number 31 of Larry McIntyre almost running into the 45 of Berger and the number 20 of Joe Lowe. Still 4 drivers battling each other tooth and nail. No holds barred for the lead through that dangerous intersection. Here they come once again, watching out for cars in the crossover. No, they aren't. They're just going to keep on through at full power.
Very yellow.
We see the caution displayed, and I believe that comes because of the number 12 of Ozo Hoosier. That machine has been sitting on an area which now looks more and more precarious, so we'll bring the field down to caution behind the pace car and go get the yellow number 12X of Ozo Hoosier and get that car into line, and then we'll restart the race.
You'll notice the white Ford, the Washington Auto Parts tickets up front car with Bruce Tunney in it was fading bad. The yellow helped him out, saved him from getting lapped, but I believe he's going to have to make some kind of adjustment because he's just not on the pace.
We can look at it 2 ways, Kenny St. John, and you would know this answer better than anybody else here. Is he saving his car, or is he just in trouble?
He's having a little trouble right now. If he was saving his car, he'd be up here with the 2, the 1, the 3 car, Wayne Arnold. Those guys are trying to make the other guy lead at this point. He's too far off the pace. He needs to pick it up a little bit. I believe he's got trouble. Just going to wait till he pits for fuel. Maybe as late as 100, 150 laps in, make some kind of adjustments to the tickets up front car. As
Ozo Hoosier's car takes that sad trip off the track in front of the push vehicle, I want you to explain that. They want to make the other guy lead.
You can tell right now, I can read between the lines right here. Everybody's trying to keep a pace going, but they're not necessarily, the lap money today is not what they're looking for. They're looking for the end of this thing at about 400. These guys are passing the lead back and forth. I can read their mail.
Here are the alternates that we have on the racetrack. We've seen Doug McIntyre's number 31 come to the track. I believe we'll shortly see the number A66 of Ben Benedict, among others. Those are, I think, the next alternates to come to the track. As we glance at the racing surface, we don't see those alternates yet, but we do have the number 779 of Ray Gaddis, Jerry Brown's number 44, and we've seen a lot of Pat Pierce's number 19 at the intersection. Kenny St. John, what's it like to be sitting back in the pit area, waiting for your chance to race, charging out there, and suddenly every car on the racetrack is trying to kill you?
It seems like rush hour traffic in New York City. I noticed the 08 car, Jack Dandy's in there. Good race car driver out of Michigan, fine people.
Mike St. John goes for the lead, and he hits the throttle, and he loses it. The gears go to the number 1 of Dwayne Lee and the number 3 of Charlie Reed. And now notice that Klontz, the number 7, has moved up to that lead group for the first time this evening. And not too far behind there, you've got the number 87 of Danny Turner carrying our camera. Watching as the number 1 of Dwayne Lee storms away. He is able to establish and extend his lead, even with the crossover traffic. Dwayne Lee gets through there, but the drivers who we watch are the battle behind him. The number 3 of Charlie Reed running in second spot as we watch the crossover. Here comes Dwayne Lee, finding a tiny gap through. Then Charlie Reed. Here's Mike St. John hesitating as he watches the 44 car go through. Somehow the entire field keeps on racing. Dwayne Lee finds a tinier gap this time. It'll be a wall of metal. Charlie Reed in a big collision with the number 17 car. Charlie Reed crashes by John Welliver, and that's a big smash up at the crossover. Charlie Reed looking for a chance to get through the intersection, clipped by John Welliver, and that crash brings out the caution.
That's a true caution. That was a grinding crash. Charlie Reed and the 17 car got together. Neither man lifted. You see the results.
John Welliver was headed southbound. Charlie Reed was headed northbound. Reed almost got through. Reed came within maybe 2 feet of making that move go at the Indianapolis Speedrome. Welliver ran into the rear of Charlie Reed's car, clipping him as he went through the intersection. That was the first part of the crash. The second part of the crash happened when Charlie Reed's spinning car at full speed, the tires scrubbing off only a little momentum, hit the wall over here on the east side of the Indianapolis Speedrome.
I was glad to see the 3 car do a 360. Yeah, and I thought for a moment he might bicycle. If he bicycle, he puts it up in the stand. That was a crash.
The third caution of the night comes out for the most serious wreck of the Indianapolis Speedrome, happening right before the 20-minute mark of the first hour of this 3-hour race of the Indianapolis Speedrome. John Welliver's number 17 and Charlie Reed's number 3 collide at the intersection. We checked both drivers on their condition. We're down there looking at Charlie Reed's car, and we see that Bruce Tunney makes his move into the pit area, hoping that they can make some sort of quick repairs to this machine or quick adjustments to the machine and get it back onto the racetrack. Now, watch the pace car as it goes through the south end. As he comes to the north side of the racetrack, when he goes past the pit gate, if Bruce Tunney isn't there, he'll go 1 lap down.
It's going to take a couple of laps to clean this mess up. Like I say, the 17 car, I believe that fellow just bought that car this week from the Sizemore group. And Charlie Reed in the blue number 3, we watched him all year. He's very, very fast. He's very, very aggressive. What we dealt with right then was 0 clearance. What you call one of those AT&T passes. Just reach out and touch someone.
Charlie Reed was the ultimate winner of the Indianapolis Speedrome last weekend when he won a 50-lap figure-8 race after so many points of disappointment. By the way, folks, Charlie Reed, after that massive crash, takes his time, but he gets out of the car. He's okay.
Charlie appears to be physically okay. I'm sure he's real sick about that race car. Charlie's quite a racer. He races 3 or 4 nights a week around the country. I'm sure he's going to be somewhere tomorrow night, but not with that number 3.
You know, I'm not saying this is going to happen, but I've seen cars torn up worse than that come out and race again.
I've got an extra 10 if you'd like to bet on it. That one's going home tonight.
I don't have an extra 10, so I'll let you be the expert this time. Working in the middle of the 23rd minute of this first hour of the race, the leaders are working on their 44th lap of this contest, and we see Mike St. John in the lead in the number 2. Second place belongs to the number 1 of Dwayne Lee as Charlie Reed takes that long and lonely ride off the racetrack. He's got the center section of that car is in good shape, and that's where the driver sits, and that's good, but the rest of it, well, he's got the rear wheel that is bent, and when you bend a rear wheel, that means you bend a rear axle, and when you bend a rear axle, that means you take the car home. And when you see the fuel tank canted over about 15 degrees to one side, like it is on Charlie Reed's car, that means they go home, they take the bodywork off, and if they decide to save the car, they cut the rear clip off.
That's just a credit to the Charlie Reed group right there. In a lesser car right there would have had a bad situation to be into. Charlie took a direct impact. We try to stay away from that. It happens sometimes. He took a direct shot. He's okay. We can fix race cars. Glad he's okay.
Coming to another start of this race, and Mike St. John this time gets the whole shot, holds on to the advantage. In second place, you've got the number 1 of Dwayne Lee. Third place is the number 12 of Wayne Arnold, and in fourth place, you've got the number 7 of Ronnie Klotz. Up to fifth place, you've got Leonard Basham. Sixth place is the number 5 of Bill Tenney Jr. In seventh place, we have the number 116 of Rance Harmon. Now 3 cars collide over in turn number 3 as Joe Lowe's number 20 slowed down. He collected Gaddis and the car of Jack Dandy, but they kept on going. No trouble there.
The red number 6, Jack Dawson's got a flat right rear. Dawson is this for a right rear.
And a green flag pit stop, that's 3 laps. That means he loses 3 laps. Dwayne Lee in heavy traffic takes the lead back from Mike St. John. And now Leonard Basham comes to the front. Leonard Basham has lost 3-hour figure-8 endurance races by trying to lead early. At the crossover, as we see the 31 of Doug McIntyre almost run into guys. There's Bruce Tunney getting back onto the racetrack. And watch out, Robbie Loving. For the second time, he loses a lap because the heavy amount of traffic forces him to cycle through once again. Dwayne Lee hits the brakes at the intersection. Here's an important battle with the number 4, Bruce Tunney, because I think he's trying to get a lap or 2 back. I believe Bruce Tunney lost some time as he made the adjustments on the car. He's got several laps to make up as he tries to cut through traffic, going after the number 1 of Dwayne Lee. Your second place car is the number 9 of Leonard Basham. After taking it easy in the first sequence of this race, as we see Jack Dandy 08 spun, he gets restarted. I think he may have missed the marker tire and put himself another lap down. We see that Leonard Basham has finally decided this is his time. The bell has rung and Leonard Basham has formed out from his corner.
Now, this Basham outfit out of Louisville, Kentucky, I've watched them race all around the country for the last 10 or 15 years. They come up and put on a good show. He's capable of leading the thing all the way. He's pedal to the metal. That's Leonard Basham.
Basham and Lee have now pulled a substantial distance away from everybody else. Mike St. John, Wayne Arnold, Ronnie Klotz, and Bill Tenney Jr. are cars battling 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th. They have dropped back a full straightaway from these guys that are battling for the lead. Collision, the crossover between the number 61 of Cecil Carr, the number 35 of Mike Hughes, but no damage there other than a cut tire for Cecil Carr. May have to drop out of the race, and some bent bodywork on the right side of Hughes' car. We also notice Curtis McMurtry coming into the pit area and wanting to make further repairs to this car that's been involved in 2 wrecks so far. Another alternate comes onto the racetrack, Dave Lambert. We mentioned Mike Hughes, he's the 11th alternate. Dave Lambert in the 04 is the 12th alternate.
You've got 2 KG veterans there, the Mike St. John and Wayne Arnold, the 2 and the 12 car. If you just keep an eye on them, these guys not letting each other out of their sight. I think they're sending the 1 car out to be a bird dog, watching for the 2 and the 12 to make a move.
And Leonard Basham has been known for his desire to go out to the front and lead as much and as often as possible. We'll look at these drivers in this second group as we go through turns number 3 and 4 and start this lap as we work lap number 54 for the leader. We see that Mike St. John and Wayne Arnold almost push each other through that turn again. St. John is running in 3rd, Arnold is running in 4th, 5th place is the car of Plont, and 6th place is the number 5 of Bill Tenney Jr., and 7th place I would give to Rance Harmon's number 116, and I believe those are the only drivers left on the lead lap. There's Rance Harmon hitting the brakes to keep him hitting somebody else in the intersection. That lets Dwayne Lee get another turn ahead. And notice that Bruce Tunney hits the number 9 of Leonard Basham in the tire coming out of turn number 4 in his attempt to get around Basham and get up to a position. That was not a race for position because Tunney lost some laps making repairs to the car in the pit area. We see that Fred Bear comes back onto the racetrack. It is yellow number 16 and pauses because the entire field is flowing ahead of him at the crossover. Now the crossover, Dwayne Lee finds a tiny gap and gets on through. As it mentioned, as he tries to measure the traffic and stay in front of the number 9 of Leonard Basham. Basham holds up at the crossovers. We see Bruce Tunney, who continues to try to pick up a lap or so, but he simply can't keep up with Dwayne Lee. A car is spun in turn number 1. That's the number 27 of Eddie Deal. He gets restarted, but he's lost some more ground. Bobby Loving almost gets hit by Fred Bear in the intersection, and Loving has to lose yet another lap because of the heavy traffic. At this moment, the race is not for the lead. The race is not for second. The race is for third place. Wayne Arnold has that third position, having snatched it away from the number 2 Mike St. John. In that group, you notice at the crossover, watch out, the number 44 and 66 cars crash hard. The number 44 of Jerry Brown and the number 66 of Ben Benedict collide at the crossover. The Louisville driver and the Michigan driver crash at the crossover. Benedict with a flat tire tries to drive off the track. The front end of Brown's number 44 is torn asunder.
I don't believe the 44 car can move. He took a direct shot on the front wheels and got serious damage. The blue 44.
So as that car rains coolant onto the racetrack, since it's far enough out of the way, we'll continue to race this contest under green. Looking for the battle between St. John and Arnold as they come out of number 4 and come to the crossover. It is a race for third place with Wayne Arnold with the number 12 car going through the second turn. Now headed through the crossover, watching out for several machines. They both barely managed to get through that crossover as they battle hard. Now Leonard Basham is being caught. Rather, Leonard Basham is catching the number 1 of Dwayne Lee out of turns number 3 and 4. There's the number 1 car bouncing off the 31 of McIntyre. As we see McIntyre pull off the track, Leonard Basham goes to the inside of Dwayne Lee as 2 cars collide at the intersection. Leonard Basham crashes into the number 07 car of David Staten, who had just collided with another car. And David Staten and Leonard Basham's car are disabled as we go to yellow. Again, the crossover bites hard at the Indianapolis Speedrome. The crossover sinks its teeth into Leonard Basham's car. This driver that was gallantly battling for the lead at the Indianapolis Speedrome, Kenny St. John, Leonard Basham looks like he's done for the night.
Yeah, the 9 car Leonard Basham, I believe he's got serious damage tonight. They got a real experienced pit crew. They're out of Louisville, Kentucky. They're experienced racers. If it can be fixed, they'll fix it. But looks like all chances of winning are out the window for Leonard Basham. Heck of a nice fella.
A few years ago, we saw Leonard Basham take his car to the front, challenge gallantly for the lead in the 3-hour figure 8 endurance contest, and come home a disappointed loser because he got involved in too many crashes. In 1988, Leonard Basham beat Rance Harmon, his arch rival of the Sportsdrome, by 14 laps to win the 3-hour figure 8 endurance contest. Tonight, Harmon keeps on going, but Basham has bashed out of the race.
I talked with Leonard earlier this evening when I got here, and he said he lost a big motor that he raced down in Louisville and Jeffersonville over this last summer. He lost the motor. They just brought up the best spare they could put together, was hoping they could get her done, but I think it's bad luck tonight for Leonard. Hate to say it, he's a nice fellow. He brings a class crew in. They're good racers.
No doubt that Basham got the job done, but this second crossover crash after the one that took out the number 44 of Jerry Brown, another one of the Sportsdrome competitors, that was the first crash. Then you had that second crash that eliminated 2 other machines, and of course the most notable of those out of the contest, Leonard Basham at the number 9. And also we see the number 30 car of Guy Strode coming out of the racetrack on the back of the hook. Didn't see what happened to Strode's car. I don't think that car was, I stand corrected, it was involved in the crash most definitely. Hey, you can see everything inside there. That car has the entire right front suspension torn off. But again, if they're crazy enough, they can get that car put back again. And looking at Leonard Basham's car, well, the front part of the frame looks secure, but I'm sure that there's a lot of suspension damage behind that right front that we can't see from this distance and angle.
You can almost tell by the way the sheet metal's crinkled up. He's got some serious frame damage there. But like I say, it's an experienced team out of Louisville, Kentucky. He's a former world champion. If they can put it together, you can bet the Basham team will.
I have heard stories of drivers taking wreckers and pry bars and other cars and telephone poles and pulling those race cars back into line.
Yeah, I've seen about every trick there is around these racetracks. These guys are die-hard racers. Like I say, this is a world championship figure 8. To us, it's our Daytona 500. If he can get her going, you can bet he will. He's a fine fella.
And indeed, that is the case. Here at the Indianapolis Speedrome Tower, we have a veteran observer of many automobile races who stares at this contest with disbelief. He has seen the best short track drivers around the nation for the last couple of years. Even he can't believe the intensity of this 3-hour figure 8 endurance contest. And look at all that we've had so far, Kenny St. John, as we come to yet another start of this race. All the things we've had in this contest, and we barely are 1/6 of the way through this contest.
We got a long way to go here tonight. These guys have got off to a good flying start. The pace is real quick. I'm still watching the 2 of St. John, the 12 of Arnold. It seems like they're glued together. One's driving the other's car. That's the way it looks like to me. They're hooked together for the night.
coming through the intersection as we see the number 66 car of Ben Benedict. Remember, Benedict was involved in one of those crossover crashes there before the big one, and he still keeps that car going. Ben Benedict's car shows some smoke, but he is still out there racing, and that says a lot. Dwayne Lee has the advantage to the number 1. Charges in the intersection. About 1/4 lap behind him, you've got the number 7 of Ronnie Klotz, who has survived the 2nd spot. 3rd position belongs to the number 12 of Wayne Arnold. 4th place, the number 2 of Mike St. John. In 5th place, you've got the number 5 of Bill Dunning Jr. In 6th place, you've got Rance Harmon at number 116. 7th place, I believe that's it. I believe Harmon's the last driver on the lead lap, but the heavy pace of this race has left only 7 drivers running on the lead circuit. And again, 3 drivers battle hard for 2nd place, 3 abreast as they go through into turn number 3. The leader of that battle for 2nd is the number 2 of Mike St. John. Now trouble with Ben Benedict's car, shows a lot of smoke, but it keeps on going. Here's Mike St. John in 2nd place for number 2, putting the Klotz number 7 car back to 3rd place. 4th place is the number 12 of Wayne Arnold. And in that group, you also have the number 4 of Bruce Tunney, who has lost laps, but tries to get those laps back. There's the leader, the number 1 of Dwayne Lee, who has the advantage. The battle is for 2nd place, about a 1/4 lap behind him. As one crash in the intersection with the number 19 car of Pierce running over the front end of the 04 of Dave Lambert. It was a low-speed impact, but it sent Pierce's car into the air and almost put that kangaroo piece on the back of his car upside down. At the intersection, watch out for Cecil Carr, who gets overwhelmed by a whole bunch of guys in the intersection. Here's where the battle is. It's for 2nd place. Mike St. John is now pulled ahead of the number 7 of Klotz, but now St. John hesitates at the intersection, and Klotz and Arnold have to watch out for prize number 14. A spin to the number 35 of Mike Hughes, facing the wrong way, coming out of turn number 2. The car does not move. Mike Hughes' machine is stationary. Mike Hughes' car does not move. Here comes your pack of cars going directly at Mike Hughes' machine. Will they all get through there? Will they all see Mike Hughes' car? So far, they have avoided Mike Hughes, who gets the car in reverse gear, trying to save his life. Mike Hughes still trying to get his machine to go, and we continue to watch the rest of the guys storm through. There's Dwayne Lee past Hughes' machine, finding a tiny gap in the crossover. Here's your guys going for 2nd spot. Again, a massive pack of cars splitting around. Hughes' car right and left. Can they avoid him? Somehow they get through a 2nd time. As we wait to see if Mike Hughes can get his car to restart. And the yellow is displayed because of Mike Hughes' machine. Mike Hughes, number 35, a car driven a couple of years ago by Charlie Reed, spun in its 2nd incident of the night and was facing backwards.
I noticed the 4 car, ticket up front car with Bruce Tunney in there. He did come back up and run with the leaders. He was off the pace early. I think he's trying to get a lap back. He might be 1 or 2 down. Tickets up front. I think he's coming back to the front.
An important point to be made as we work the 36th minute of the first hour of this race and the 76th lap of the leader. This is the most important point we can make. We emphasize drivers that stay on the lead lap in the first frantic laps of this contest. Kenny St. John, anybody within 5 laps of the lead at this point, at just about any point, has a chance to win.
Absolutely. I've been as high as 10 and 15 down in this race, 2 hours into it, and still was lucky enough or fortunate enough to get the win. Anything can happen, and tonight it usually does. These guys all still got the name in the hat.
Coming to the green flag as we begin the 37th and 38th minute of this race. Coming out of number 2, there's the number 1 of Dwayne Lee with the advantage. We see the alternates continue to come onto the track. We now have Ken Lewis and Curtis Murphy out there. Those are alternates number 18 and 17, respectively. At the intersection, Dwayne Lee loses a little ground. Ken Lewis, has he stalled the number 41 car? I don't believe it. Ken Lewis just came onto the racetrack in the number 41, and he has stalled that machine. Watching Ken Lewis in the number 41 as the leaders come out of turn number 4. Ken Lewis' car does not move. Now he gets it to roll and saves his life, but he blocks Bruce Tunney and Ronnie Klotz. Occasionally you will see smoke coming from the area of turn number 1. You might look over there and see, well, maybe there's been the mother of all crashes. No, that's the barbecue pit. And racing toward that barbecue pit are the 3 leaders. The number 1 of Dwayne Lee, the number 2 of Mike St. John, and the number 12 of Wayne Arnold, running 1st, 2nd, and 3rd. Looking at the crossover. Lee goes through 1st, finds some gap behind the number 40 of John Dawsey and keeps on going. 2, 3, and 4. Dwayne Lee has the advantage. advantage. It's a crowded intersection. All the drivers hit the brakes. John Dawsey again splitting between those leaders. But Dwayne Lee somehow has enough speed and timing to get on through there. Here's the crossover. There's the number 1 of Dwayne Lee going on through. The number 5 of Bill Tunney Jr. has decided he's tired of waiting. And he goes to second spot, passing the leaders on the outside. Bill Tunney Jr. challenges for first place. Goes to the low side of Dwayne Lee. What's the lead? Gets it for a moment as they head northbound, watching for other cars. The crossover is clearing 5 abreast racing. Dwayne Lee has inside advantage to turns number 3 and 4 of the 83rd lap and leads this lap, or will it be Tunney? No, Tunney comes up 2 lanes short as they start to finish the 39th minute of the first hour of this race. All over the place as Danny Turner slows the intersection, showing some smoke from the camera car. And now we see that Dwayne Lee noticing the pressure from Bill Tunney Jr. Oh, Dwayne Lee almost hit and taken out by the number 16 of Fred Bear. That put Tunney into the lead. That puts the number 2 of Mike St. John in the second, and it drops Dwayne Lee all the way back to third.
Dwayne Lee setting a very aggressive pace here tonight in the red number 1, taking a lot of chances at the crossover. He's a very accomplished race driver. He wouldn't have been your track champion 2 years in a row. I think he needs to settle in here a little bit and get some laps under.
You talk about settling in. Tell that to Bill Tunney Jr. and Mike St. John. They race wheel to wheel. A crowded crossover. Who will dare first as we see the number 40 of John Dawsey is spun, and Ken Lewis stalls again for an instant of the crossover. Somehow keeps on going. Tunney leads. Dwayne Lee gets to the crossover in second place. Third place to Mike St. John. Fourth place is Wayne Arnold in the number 12. There are 10 cars in the crossover. Here come the leaders. The number 116 of Grant Harmon just barely gets to the crossover. By our scorer's indications, Harmon has the last car on the lead lap of the number 116. Here's the way the Indianapolis Speedrome scorers show this race as we work the 41st minute of the first hour. The leader is the number 5 of Bill Tunney Jr. At a crowded crossover, the second place is the number 1 of Dwayne Lee. Third place is the number 2 of Mike St. John. And fourth place is the number 12 of Wayne Arnold. Your fifth place car is the number 116 of Harmon. Let's double check on that one. And Harmon will be the last driver on the lead lap. We are running short of lead lap cars. So many that had been on that lead circuit find themselves dropping back. The scorers show 6 cars on the lead lap. The lead again is the number 5 of Bill Tunney Jr. As we see several cars into it at the crossover. Looks like Curtis McMurtry is having his troubles again. They've taken most of the rear bodywork off of McMurtry's car, but he continues to race.
The red 6 car, Jack Dawsey, lost the lap to the leader. He got caught up in a little traffic there at the crossover.
But of course, Dawsey had already gone a lap down because of a pit stop that he had to make under green. Heavy traffic gives the lead back to the number 1 of Dwayne Lee. Number 5 of Bill Tunney Jr. in second spot. Number 2 of Mike St. John in third. Back a short distance, you've got the number 12 of Wayne Arnold in fourth place. In fifth place, you'd have the number 7 of Ronnie Kron. Sixth place, last driver on the lead lap, the number 116 of Rance Harmon. Harmon looks at a crowded crossover, just barely gets through as we watch for the leader. Dwayne Lee has been one of the constants in this contest. There have been other drivers that have been up and back and forth in the front, but I think Dwayne Lee has probably had as much time in the lead as anybody else. For one of the few times in this race, the leaders start to string out. And by stringing out, we mentioned something that would be a close race by any other standards in automobile racing in the United States or elsewhere. And the lead by Dwayne Lee is all of about one turn. That's about 15 car lengths. Dwayne Lee looks for room at the crossover, hesitates, now hits the throttle and just barely gets through. 2 cars hit at the crossover. The number 32 of Kenny Rackley and the number 08 of Jack Denny. They hit sideways, but they kept on going. Through all of that heavy traffic, the number 1 of Dwayne Lee has been caught by the number 5 of Bill Tunney Jr. They engage to the lead, but Lee outdrives Tunney through number 2. At the crossover, Lee has to watch out for Ray Gaddis' machine. And here's Mike St. John moving through to make it a 3-car battle for the lead. It's been a constant fight among 2 and 3 and 4 drivers. Watch out in the number 44. The other Gaddis almost got in his second crash tonight. We talked about cars that are damaged in crossover crashes. That number 44 of Gaddis, that's an excellent example. We thought that car was done for the night. It's been 10 minutes and they got it back on the racetrack.
2 minutes. These crews they got a heart as big as gold. When they come out here to race, they'll do anything to keep going. If they bring spare parts, these guys are racers. They're ready to go.
And why are they racing so hard? I'll tell you why. 6th place pays $1,000 to win. Is that good money?
It's not a bad payday at all. 3 hours for $1,000. What about that $6,000 up on the front end? A couple of these guys thought about that tonight.
At the intersection, Jack Dawsey Jr. almost runs into all 3 leaders and scrambles them as the sliding Bill Tunney Jr. hits the throttle first and goes through the lead. But Dwayne Lee comes through in 2nd spot. Looks for Tunney on the inside of turn number 3 of lap number 97. Trying for that position. They race wheel to wheel. They come to the crossover. They watch out for Larry Berger's car and they finesse the brakes and Tunney led that circuit. But they continue the battle as the cars meander through the intersection. Somehow they keep on going. Now we see an interesting battle, not so much for position, but for prime between the number 12 of Wayne Arnold and the number 4 Bruce Tunney. They are laps apart. And then the turn number 2 area, we've got a turn number 3 area, we've got a car that's spun. The number 2X machine has looped it over there and is facing the wrong direction. As we watch the number 2X car trying to get restarted and still face the wrong way. Let's watch and see what the circumstance is going to be for the leaders as Bill Tunney Jr. leads through that crowded area. The 2X car finally gets restarted and will roll them once again. Jerry Whitten gets back into the racetrack. Pulls through the crossover trying to figure out where he's going to go. Nearing the 45-minute mark of the first hour of this 3-hour race in 3 abreast traffic. The leaders split around Gaddis. The advantage to Dwayne Lee, who gets the lead back with number 5 of Bill Tunney Jr. In 3rd place, you've got the number 2 of Mike St. John. Now it looks like quickly thought there might be some trouble with number 27 of Field. Instead, he drove down into a tree at the front of that car, dropped down for a bit. He thought he might have a flat tire or broken suspension. Incorrect conclusion.
100 laps ago, I made mention of the number 2 car and the number 12. St. John and Arnold running together. 102 laps into this thing, they're still bumper to bumper. That's the cat and mouse game going right there.
Ronnie Klotz in trouble. Goes 1 lap down right now. Ronnie Klotz is now, not 1 lap down. He is almost 1 lap down and lost a lot of that ground that he'd been trying to hold all the way through there. The driver who is in danger of going 1 lap down is the number 116 of Harmon. Harmon, 3 cars, 4 cars, 6 cars, 8 cars crash in turn number 2. Wayne Arnold pumps from the back of Grant Harmon's car and is stalled along with the number 2 of Mike St. John. Those drivers all pile in there behind a crossover, trying to crash as the yellow goes out. Now St. John and Arnold have got to get going before they go a lap down. And they finally do so. 2 machines appear to be completely disabled from that one. One of them, the number 27 of Deal, the other one, Whitten, who already had his spin over that same turn a while ago. And we see that Jack Dawsey Jr. has trouble with his machine as we see 2 other cars go off the track. The 04 car of Lambert and the number 32 car go off the racetrack. So that chain reaction crash over in turn number 2 causes another yellow, and Jack Dawsey Jr. is in big trouble this time. He's broken the front suspension, the right front and left front tires. Watch out as he got past going into the pit area by the number 22 of Boyd Butcher. And finally, the number 6 of Jack Dawsey Jr. gets off the track.
Jack's having a rough time here tonight. He started out with a flat tire, had to make the pit stop a couple, 3 times. He's going to take it back in. I think he might have broken the radiator and maybe some front suspension right there. I'm sure they got the spare parts. They'll be working on it. Just having an off day. He'd be a picture that it done pulled him.
He's broken the front suspension so badly that they cannot get the car to turn well enough even to get back to the pit area. He almost ran right into the pit garage. He just can't simply get the car to go.
I didn't really see what happened. The black 2X up here, he's got her sideways, and after that, they just kind of bunched up.
A disappointing end for the time being tonight to the Sportsdrome driver, Jerry Whitten, who looks at the front end of his car, gets some sympathy from the people over there in the pit area, but also gets some service from the Indy Towing Service record. Kenny St. John, I hear that you spent so much time behind records that you almost got a master's degree in towing.
That seemed like it a few times. I'm anxious to see how the back of the pack picks up here. The 4 car, St. John, we got Arnold back there. They run real close to the front all day. They've had a little bit of problem. Let's see if they settle down, work their way back up to the front, see if they can catch the number 1.
We pause for a moment under this caution to consider our drivers and their relative positions on the racetracks. To notice that the number 1 of Dwayne Lee has the lead. The number 5 of Bill Tenney Jr. is in second place. Then a gap back to the number 12 of Wayne Arnold. Fourth place is the number 7 of Ronnie Klotz. Fifth place, the number 116 of Harmon. Sixth place, the number 2 of Mike St. John. St. John, delayed by that crash, which all but blocked the track for a moment, has fallen to the last car on the lead lap, although we watch and see if Wayne Arnold can continue to race. That's one of those lucky things. Wayne bumped into the car of Harmon, which had stopped there at the intersection, rather stopped there in turn number 3 for the crash, and actually pushed up part of Harmon's bodywork for a moment. Now, if you have bad luck, a piece of metal slices through your tire and you have a flat. If you have good luck, you back up and keep on going.
Absolutely. Luck plays a big part in it tonight. There's just so many chances that's being taken here tonight. Like I say, we anticipate going 400 laps. That means you got to go 0 for 800 at the crossover. These guys are real professionals.
More alternates have come onto the racetrack in this last sequence. We go to the green flag period as we see the number 13 of Kenny Payne. Scott Martin has gotten a chance to race in the number 76, along with Rich Catron and Stacy Munn. Even Preston Maxwell has come onto the racetrack. Even with only 6 cars left on the lead lap as we finish the 50th minute of the first hour of this race, we still do have ourselves a battle for the lead. That battle for the lead starts with the number 1 of Dwayne Lee coming to the crossover, slowing down for the cars of Gaddis and Payne, and that allows the number 5 of Bill Tenney Jr. to close in second spot. Those drivers have to slow up at the intersection, but no advantage one way or the other because they both had to hit the brakes and the throttle at the same time. Tenney almost slid into Lee going through turn number 2. Out of that second car, watch out, Robbie Lovey, the leader, went right across your bow at full speed. Tenney would like to go to the outside of Lee to make the pass. Cannot do so. Out of turn number 4. Here's the intersection, and Tenney braves his way back into the lead. 3 cars have crashed in turn number 3 and 4 as Maxwell was trying to go off the track. It was Benedict's number A66, the number 27 of Deal, and the number 18 of Heiser that run into each other, and those cars have slowed down and stopped on the racetrack. We'll continue to run under green as we evaluate the situation as the race officials decide what they're going to do next in this circumstance. Off the track, Manny Aguilar and Gaddis in the number 44. That's Danny Gaddis, the son of Ray Gaddis, who stays on the racetrack in the number 779. We go to yellow because of the crash. We display the yellow because of the crash that left the number 27 of Deal and the number A66 of Benedict on the racetrack disabled after they ran into each other. This happens as we reach the 51-minute mark of the first hour of this 3-hour race. 111 laps so far. That means we're looking at about 370 laps overall, which kind of pales to the pace that you set back in 1982. But on the other hand, the rules have changed a bit, so you probably won't have one of those 500-lap races anymore.
I think everything is relevant. Back then we went to, like here we're on a caution. Back then we go to a full course red. It stopped the clock. Obviously we run a lot more laps. In fact, we run 512 one time. It was a long night.
Now there's Dwayne Lee following the pace vehicle. I don't know what's happening here, why everybody is circling in the wrong direction. Apparently the entire field is going to take an additional lap at the north end of the racetrack following the pace car. Now the number 5 of Bill Tenney Jr. has to wait for the pace car. Here's the pace car coming through, and the pace car has to come up and get in front of Bill Tenney Jr. as they brought the field north for an additional loop for one reason or another. Everybody continued on that northbound loop, so that circumstance did not cost anybody a lap, that short bit of confusion there. And so now everybody joins in behind the pace car, and it appears that same group of drivers that was on the lead lap at that point remains on the lead lap. The Indy Towing Service record should move up to the number 27 of Deal here shortly. And we get set for the restart of this 3-hour figure eight endurance contest here in just a couple of minutes. Dwayne Lee, the two-time track champion, in the middle of this fight, along with Bill Tunney Jr. Tunney coming from the 8th starting spot to run in this lead group. And we get set for the restart of this one as we work near the end of the first hour of this race. Watching as Bill Tunney Jr. and Dwayne Lee come down to the start of this one. They continue to race for the lead, wheel to wheel, as they come out of turn number 4 of the 115th lap of this race and work in the middle of the 58th minute of this contest. We notice the number 2X car of Whitten is back out there. He's been involved in a couple of incidents so far. And now there's the number 08 of Jack Dandy spinning in turn number 3. And at the intersection, Ronnie Clontz and Wade Arnold have to watch out for the slow traffic. Dandy gets restarted, and so does Whitten, who almost rolls his left rear off the rim. At the intersection, Gaddis, Bill Tunney Jr. gets hit by the number 14 of Robbie Fry. Robbie Fry hits Bill Tunney Jr. Tunney recovers from the hit, gets back into the fight. Fry's car is all torn up. Tunney runs at full power as if nothing happened to that car. I don't believe it, Kenny St. John. You don't take full power hits from another car, tear up the front of yours, and then race like nothing happened. What do they make those cars out of?
I can't understand it. The 14 car's got considerable damage. It's very obvious damage. The 5 car shifted a gear, and he's back up there with the leaders.
In fact, he's back there racing with Mike St. John. The only damage appears to have been maybe a bit of bodywork damage, and Bill Tunney Jr. is still running. He's the last driver on the lead lap and has to watch out for Ronnie Clontz and Wayne Arnold, but he continues to race. Robbie Fry's car, we mentioned Bill Fry, his father, who was a racer and a winner out here at the Indianapolis Speedrome in years past. Robbie Fry's, Ronnie Clontz, Robbie Loving almost hit at full speed, head on. That would have been a massive crash. I don't know how they got away with it. The entire infield at the Indianapolis Speedrome is the crossover. Both drivers thought they were going to an empty part of the racetrack, and they almost hit each other head on at full speed. Dwayne Lee has the lead. He is not alone. Wayne Arnold has caught the leader to battle for first place as we close out the first hour of this 3-hour figure eight endurance race at the Indianapolis Speedrome. Joining them is the third place number 7 of Ronnie Clontz. In fourth place, Grant Harmon in the 116. Fifth place is the number 5 of Bill Tunney Jr. and Mike St. John still running in the tail of the lead lap in 6th place. Here's your race for the lead. Going into the first turn of the 122nd lap of this race as we're getting close to the end. What trouble for Ronnie Clontz. The third place driver made an additional loop of the infield, and I think Clontz may have gone a 1 lap down by that incident as we come down to finish the first hour of this 3-hour race. Now, cars crashing. It's number 66 of Benedict mounting the number 61 of Cecil Carr. Carr's machine goes away with broken bodywork and a flat tire. Benedict sails along as if nothing happened. We search for the leaders on the racetrack. There's Dwayne Lee coming to the crossover through turns number 3 and 4 with the advantage, but he heads into heavy traffic as Wayne Arnold maintains his pursuit. The third place driver for the moment, I will call the number 116 of Grant Harmon. I'll give 4th place to the number 5 of Bill Tunney Jr. and 5th place to Mike St. John, last driver on the lead lap. I am not certain of the circumstances with Ronnie Clontz's car. He took an extra loop at the north end of the racetrack. And in fact, as I look out there, Clontz continues to run, but I believe he's not on the lead lap anymore, although that's an unofficial reckoning. Our scorers will double check that. Into the second minute of the second hour of this race as we see Preston Maxwell drive off the track to the number 79. The lead continues to be this tight battle between Wayne Arnold and the number 1 of Dwayne Lee. They continue to run in tandem through turns number 3 and 4, finishing 126 laps in this timed race. At the crossover, Gaddis pulls right through and Bill Tunney Jr. is there, but he managed to keep on going. Now, Dwayne Lee runs into the back end of Bruce Penny's car. That put Wayne Arnold into the lead through 3 and 4. The 127th lap led by Wayne Arnold, streaking away with the number 1 of Dwayne Lee. In turn, Dwayne has not been able to get around Bruce Tunney in the number 4. Bruce has lost a lap to Wayne Arnold, but now Dwayne Lee just now gets through. It's now definitely number 7 of Ronnie Klotz in trouble. Circles in the infield. Ronnie Klotz loses his way and loses maybe 2 laps with that extra circle there. Klotz had been one of the fast qualifiers, had been running on the lead lap. I wonder if Klotz shies away from the crossover.
Got a wheel up there.
Number 1 turn. Somebody has lost the wheel. Scott Martin's number 76 has lost its right rear. The wheel continues to bounce around the racetrack, hits the wall, bounds around, gets hit by the number 75 car, and now circles through there. Scott Martin's car loses the right rear as we go to a yellow flag. Martin's still able to back that car up a bit.
You made the observation earlier in the evening about the late model quick change rear ends, wide 5 patterns. This is a case right here of a great big car on a little bitty axle.
Scott Martin's car out of it for the time being. At glancing at it, it looks as if the hub may have broken. It looks like the brake disc is still there. Maybe the stub's sheared off. We'll find that out. And Scott Martin's crew will find out. Oddly enough, that looks spectacular, Kenny St. John, but that's the sort of thing that you can actually fix fairly quickly.
I don't think there's a lot of trouble there, but I think the big old Goodyear Eagle just chewed up probably a pro stock rear end. They're just not compatible. That's why you see the leaders and some of the pastime cars do have the quick changes, and they'll hold the big ones on all night. I noticed, too, Mike St. John was in danger of going a lap down there. This yellow didn't hurt him a bit. He's still on the lead lap.
Indy Towing Service gives its service to Scott Martin's number 76. There's Kenny Rackley's number 32 going off by the push. And let's look at how far down we've gone through on our alternates list for the Indianapolis Speedrome. I see Country Brown out there. He's alternate number 27, and Dennis Cherry out there in the 75. He hit that tire as it was bounding around the racetrack. It looks as if the drive studs just simply sheared off that car, off that wheel. That's the sort of thing that you could fix, but it's no fun to fix it.
Okay.
5 minutes into the first hour of the second hour of this race. Try that again. Working to close out the 5th minute of the second hour of this race as Mike Blackwell makes a pit stop. The 28th alternate just came onto the track. We come back to green, and we show the leader as being number 7, Ronnie Klotz. That's not that hard to believe. Hurry up, folks. That the number 1 of Dwayne Lee and the number 12 of Wayne Arnold were racing for the lead, and the number 2 of Ronnie Klotz had lost a couple of laps and he was circling in the infield, but the scorers tell us that Klotz has the lead and Mike St. John is in second place. We'll have to double check with our scorers. Kenny St. John, I think the scorers know what to do in this case. I'm not sure because I think Klotz lost a couple of laps, at least one when he was circling around the infield doing some strange donuts.
Yeah, I didn't see the 12 car with Arnold in it, or the red number 1. I didn't see him lose a lap. The official scores are ruled that they cut a tire here a few moments ago. They're on the way to pick it back up.
Okay, here's the way they scored as of lap number 103. They say that the number 1 of Lee and the number 12 of Arnold cut tires. At the crossover crash between Robbie Loving and the number 95 of Tony Hull, it was a gentle hit. Now 2 cars have crashed in turn number 1. The number 66 of Curtis Murphy and the number 40 of John Dawsey. They gradually get restarted. So again, the leaders, the scorers give us this lineup as of lap number 125. They say the leader is the number 7 of Ronnie Klotz. They say second place is the number 2 of Mike St. John. Third place at the intersection, number 6 of Dandy almost ran into Dwayne Lee and the number 12 of Wayne Arnold. I don't know how they both got away with that one. Once again, let's try to set your running order on the racetrack according to our scores. They tell us the leader is the number 7 of Ronnie Klotz. Second place is the number 2 of Mike St. John. Third place is the 116 of Harmon. Fourth place is the number 5 of Bill Finney Jr. They say the number 1 of Dwayne Lee and the number 12 of Wayne Arnold are racing for 5th place, 1 lap down. So with that in mind, as Ronnie Klotz almost gets hit by the number 53 car coming through the intersection of Phil Lynch, let's use that as the scoring. And based on that, we see that Ronnie Klotz has himself an advantage of about a quarter lap over Mike St. John. In turn, his lead is almost a half lap over the number 5 of Bill Tenney Jr. Well, Bill Tenney Jr., according to this reckoning of our scores, is about ready to go 1 lap down to the number, I stand corrected, crossover crash. 3 cars take each other out of the intersection. The number 53 of Lynch, the number 77 car of Buns, and the number 75 car all take each other out. Number 75 driven by Dennis Cherry, and they collect the number 35 of Mike Hughes. They tell us that the number 5 of Bill Tenney Jr. has now gone past the number 2 of St. John and the number 7 of Klotz and into the lead. So the race between the number 5 and 7 cars, according to our scores, is the race for first place, with Mike St. John in the number 2 trying to catch back to them, and the number 116 of Lance Harmon nearly 1 lap down. In the meantime, these 4 cars that stuffed each other over in turn number 1 remain out of the way, according to our race officials, and will continue to race under green for the time being. Watching that battle, the front car's in trouble. The number 22 car, Boyd Butcher, spun and making contact also there with the number 7 of Ronnie Klotz. Butcher spun and also collected the number 08 of Jack Dandy and the 779 of Ray Gaddis had trouble over there as well as we go to yellow.
That'll allow the number 1 car and the number 12 car to make up one of those laps they was down. They were in front of the leader when the yellow come out.
And now Ronnie Klotz is going off the racetrack. That would be a pit stop by our second place car as we reckon this. So the pace car goes out to pick up the leader. And again, the leader by our scorers reckoning, as we check our lineup sheet, would be the number 7 of Ronnie Klotz. But with him off the track,
that's why you can catch number 5. You need to race Dwayne on around.
So the number 5 of Bill Tenney Jr. is shown as the leader by the scorers. Second place would have been Ronnie Klotz, the number 7, but he made a pit stop. Your third place car was the number 2, Mike St. John, put him in the second spot.
Needs to go past the pace car too.
Yeah. Arnold is running the leader also. He needs to go.
Now, we had mentioned earlier that the number 1 of Dwayne Lee and the number 12 of Wayne Arnold had been scored a lap down. But they, in that last sequence, got around the number 5 of Bill Tenney Jr. Our scorers indicate to us that the number 1 of Dwayne Lee and the number 12 of Wayne Arnold get back on the lead lap. Dwayne Lee needs to complete this lap on the north end of the racetrack. Here's the circumstance. Dwayne Lee got back on the lead lap, but he needs to circle around the field and catch up to the tail end. He needs to go around the north end of the racetrack to be able to get back on the tail end of the lead lap according to our scorers, and that's what's happening as Dwayne Lee will get that lap back. But as Wayne Arnold was trying to complete his unlapping process, he dove into the pit area. Now, if Wayne Arnold can get to the gate, he will get securely back onto the racetrack, but no, he can't. It's too late for that right now, as Wayne Arnold, who got back on the lead lap and unlapped himself, according to our track officials, will stay that lap down because he made the pit stop. We see one person up there who is showing a pit sign to the Ken Algren car. I believe that's to the number 866. That car looks okay, sign to him. And we also see a sign to Parr as well.
Yeah.
There's plenty of chances, Art, before tonight's over. He'll have to save it, huh?
All right. Well, 1 is 12 percent tire. Yeah. Score. We have a mission score.
So again, this is the way that it looks according to the reckoning that we got from our scores a couple of minutes ago. They're showing the number 5 of Bill Tenney Jr. in the lead. The number 2 of Mike St. John they show in second spot. Third place they would give to the number 116 of Harmon, and they'd give fourth place to the number 1 of Dwayne Lee at the tail end of the lead lap. Fifth place would have been the number 7 of Klontz, but he's off the racetrack, and Wayne Arnold also made a pit stop as well. We note that Klontz has come back to the racetrack as well as Arnold, but those drivers have lost laps in their pit stops. As we work the 12th minute of the second hour of this race, Kenny St. John, can anybody finish this race without a pit stop?
We figured it out here yesterday. All week we worked it on a computer. You'll have to have fuel. If it goes 350 laps, you have to have fuel.
So all of these drivers will have to make one pit stop. So again, the lap reckoning here is one that is an interesting one, something we have to watch. But again, if you're within 3 or 4 laps of the lead, you have a chance to get to the front.
Yeah, I think the window they're going to try to use on a fuel stop only will be somewhere around 250, 300 laps. Try to catch a caution. If you don't, you'll see them pull in on green. You'll see them go to work.
Bill Tenney Jr. with the advantage, heads to the crossover, watches the side of his brother Bruce's car. Second place to Mike St. John. Third place to Harmon in the number 116. Watch out, Harmon almost ran into the back end of the number 61 of Cecil Carr, who makes yet another pit stop. Our camera car, the number 87 of Danny Turner, is in the middle of that melee, looking for racing room as we come through turns number 1 and 2 for those guys. There's the number 5 of Tunney going through as we see another alternate onto the racetrack. Steve Frost, the 34th alternate in the number 15X car. Tunney moves past Frost as he goes through the crossover and looks for some racing room. We've got about 35 cars on the racetrack now, and a yellow has been displayed. We display the yellow for apparently the spin by the number 779 of Ray Gaddis. That means the entire Gaddis family has brought out a yellow. Earlier we had his son bring out a yellow because of a crossover crash. Danny Gaddis has been on and off the track a couple of times, and now Ray has spun the number 779 and apparently has spun that car. And put insult to injury, they tried to push Gaddis' car off the track, and Gaddis steered in the wrong direction and high-centered himself against the marker tire over in turn number 4. So we're going to have to push Gaddis backwards and then forwards. Kenny St. John, as we look at the attitude that we have toward the guys that are on the racetrack right now, I understand these constant short green flag periods followed by these extended yellows is actually irritating and frustrating to the drivers. They'd rather run green all the way rather than go yellow, green, yellow, green.
Now, you can bet. These guys want to see it stay green. Hope it stays green all the way. They come here to race tonight. They do get a little chance to get a little breather here under the yellow, but they're ready to go. These guys want to race for the money.
Looking at one of our alternates circling around the racetrack, the number 73 of Preston Maxwell, Indianapolis Speedrome rookie, who came out here as the 24th alternate.
All right.
Gaddis in the number 779 cars getting his chance to get back onto the racetrack, but he's going to go off on the hook as a result of his encounter with maybe another car and also up there. Ray Gaddis describes himself simply as a driver. That means a lot.
Went to the highest bidder.
Yeah. That's what they always say about you. Didn't they say the styles owned your car?
Oh, yeah. I used to tell them that. And then I'd come in and sign in. I'd say, good evening, Uncle John. I did all I could do to keep it stirred up.
When we come back to the restart here at the Indianapolis Speedrome. We'll have the number 5 of Bill Tenney Jr. in the lead, and the number 2 of Mike St. John running in second position as Ray Gaddis, number 779, hauled off on the hook after he ran into trouble.
That 116 car's on the lead lap, isn't it? 116.
Bill Tenney Jr. describes himself as a hod carrier, and Mike St. John demonstrates his driving skills in other ways on the street. It's listed here as Repo Man. I cannot think of a more dangerous job than a repo man.
Well, he works for some of the larger banks around the United States. It's not uncommon for him to fly to Los Angeles and pick one up from someone that skipped on him. They go to Los Angeles, New York, wherever they go. He'll take a team with him. They usually bring their cars home. It's not quite as attractive as some jobs are, but he gets paid well for it.
I would think so. Yeah, I know from my time as a police reporter that occasionally the person who has that car does not want it repossessed.
A lot of times you'll have a difference of opinion there. They try to work it out. A lot of times they just come back late at night and see him.
Difference of opinion. I've heard that there's heavy metal that goes down in those little confrontations.
Yeah, you hope it don't get to that, but that's the exception, not the rule. It's just another job. He works for some of the larger banks. They're pretty good.
If you see the footprints of the snow around your garage, it'll be Mike St. John on the job. In the meantime, if somebody tries to build your house, it'll be Bill Tenney Jr. who streaks away into the lead, and Mike St. John in second place looks to try to close in as we come through the crossover. A surprisingly crowded crossover with the number 6 of Jack Dawsey Jr. among those trying to get off through. Mike St. John tries to close in, and there's number 5 of Claude Hopper meandering through the crossover, just barely getting through there, as most of the field is in about one half of the area of the racetrack. Preston Maxwell through the crossover, runs into Donnie Kafori, nails him, spins him out. Maxwell keeps on going. Kafori's machine is stalled for the moment. The number 83 does not move as the rest of the field storms on through. Kafori gets going once again. It wasn't that hard a hit. Of course, you can talk when you're not in the race car. Kafori goes off the track at the intersection. There are 3 drivers going for it all. The number 116 of Rance Harmon. Is he now shown as the leader?
Why did they set the 5 down then? Did they set the 5 down?
If you believe the numbers we have on the scoreboard, we have no indication yet from our standpoint, but if you believe the numbers on the scoreboard, they've given the lead to Rance Harmon, and they say the second place is Mike St. John. We'll double check that and try to get some indication of the score on how that developed. In any case, you do. Crowded crossover. It's like a parking lot out there. Everybody just barely gets through. And if Rance Harmon had the lead, he has now lost it to the number 2, Mike St. John. Crossover crash nearly between the number 08 car of Jack Dandy and the 04 car, one of our alternates, Dave Lambert. They disengaged and keep on going. We also see John Dawsey backing his car in the middle of nowhere as he waits to try to reestablish whoever has the lead in this race. It may be Mike St. John, it may be Bill Tenney Jr. We'll have to wait for the official scorers to give us that indication. As of yet, we have no clear indication of why they scored one car as the leader in one sequence of the race and now have changed it. Regardless of who is leading the race, we've got a lot of action out there as we see the number 27 of Eddie Deal spinning. There's the number 22 of Boyd Butcher backing in the wrong direction over turn number 4. And now at the intersection, we see some of the fast guys trying to charge on through. There's the number 2 of Mike St. John trying to keep in touch with the number 5 of Bill Tenney Jr. But he goes high, and that allows the number 12 of Wayne Arnold to storm through. I get the feeling that Arnold is trying to get some positions back here. He thinks he's going to run simply flat out, and we'll let the scorers figure it out later on. Wayne Arnold definitely looks like the fastest guy on the racetrack. A couple of laps ago, Kenny St. John, he was behind those guys that included Harmon. Look, Dwayne Lee's got trouble. Dwayne Lee, for the first time, is showing smoke from the front of his car. Out of turn number 4, let's watch Dwayne Lee's car. I definitely saw some smoke. Yeah, you can see it.
Radiator.
Dwayne Lee has a water leak. Dwayne Lee is overheating. Dwayne Lee in the number 1 car is losing the radiator. Dwayne Lee has serious trouble. That's Mike St. John and Curtis McMurtry collide in the crossover. They get disengaged. Mike St. John throws it back in forward gear and gets to the crossover, but he's lost valuable ground.
Mike St. John got a flat right rear, right front.
Mike St. John John with a
Red
flat
flag.
tire as a result of the
couldn't be the yellow
collision
flag.
between him and Curtis McMurtry as the caution comes out. We see that Bob Buchholz brings the number 69 car into the pit area.
Well,
Mike St. John was declared the leader for a moment, but now he's got problems with a flat tire and has left the racetrack. Now who does that indicate in the front of this race?
Don't worry about it. Half of them won't finish anyway. Mike St. John had a flat right front. He has went one lap down to the leader. It's going to show the 12 as the leader now.
Face of disappointment as Kenny Payne tries to bring his car off the racetrack. This driver has won oval features in the Pro Stock division of the Indianapolis Speedrome. Now his car is not running properly, and he looks for a chance to get his car off the track. In the meantime, as we look for a restart to this contest, for the moment we show the number 12 of Wayne Arnold leading, the number 7 of Ronnie Klontz in second spot. No immediate indication of these drivers run on the same lap, but they are running up in front. Mike St. John, making the tire stop, comes back to the racetrack, joining with them the number 27 of Eddie Deal and Country Brown at the number 83. We've run through virtually the entire alternates list of the Indianapolis Speedrome. We saw alternate Bob Buchholz come off the racetrack for a pit stop. Now moving on to the track, you have Troy Terry in the number 22X. That driver, the 36th alternate. Next, we'd have Robert Amos, the number 39. So we're virtually all the way through our alternates list of the Indianapolis Speedrome as we near the halfway mark of this race. 1 hour and 30 minutes is halfway based on time. We are 1 hour, 23 minutes, and 57 seconds into this race. As the number 13 of Kenny Payne comes off the racetrack, the balance of the field stays on the circuit waiting for the permission to go back to green. Bill Clark looks for a tiny gap at the intersection so he can join the tail end of the field and does so. For the moment, the north corner of the racetrack is open and empty. That won't be the case for very long because we're very close to bringing this contest back under the green for another start. It looks as if we'll get our restart here coming down to finish the 25th minute of the second hour of this 3-hour race. Watching as the pace vehicle brings the cars around turn number 3 and 4. You see the starters making their decision. They're in radio contact with that pace car. They'll determine here in a couple of seconds whether they'll go green this time. But it looks as if we're going to stay under caution for a while as we get set for another start to this contest. If the Indianapolis Speedrome pace vehicle looks like a race car, it is. It is a replica of a late model stock car like the rest of these machines. We decided that instead of using an actual street car or a truck as our pace and push vehicle, we would use the race car type of car as the pace vehicle. Has worked out quite well. the race cars may look pretty much the same. It's only when you see them come by that position that you see the differences in the flanks of these cars, especially those that have already shown the scars of battle with bits and pieces of bodywork completely ripped off. For this moment, as we bring the cars to the crossover, the two-track officials move to surround the machines and check them to see if they're in particularly good order. You can call this an inspection for the entire field to check the bodywork, to check the tires and suspension to see if those cars are ready to go. Danny Turner moves past those cars at the crossover directly behind the number 6 of Jack Dawsey Jr., waiting for a chance to go back to green. Jack Dawsey Jr. ahead of him was the driver that qualified well ahead of him. I think those drivers actually are fairly close to being with each other as far as relative positions are concerned. That smoke that comes from the area outside of the racetrack, that's no problem on the racetrack. Again, that's the barbecue pit that puts the barbecue smoke directly on the racetrack. The prevailing wind in Indiana actually goes the opposite direction. For some odd reason, that smoke comes from the barbecue pit and onto the Indianapolis Speedrome racing surface. Nearing the halfway mark of this timed race, 1 hour, 28 and 5 seconds underway. We have ourselves just about the halfway mark of this race as we prepare for the second start of this one. Ronnie Klontz and Wayne Arnold in cars number 7 and 12. Each driver has won this year at the Indianapolis Speedrome. Klontz tried so hard to win a figure 8 race, was involved in a hard crash that banged him up at the crossover in that number 7 car. Since that, the car has been put back together and actually has been rebodied. Most of the bodywork from Klontz's number 7 has been stripped away from that car. By contrast, there was a change of bodywork in the number 12 of Wayne Arnold back when it was run as Rodney Sizemore's number 55, completely rebodied. And of course, a lot of work done to convert that number 12 car with the change of engine and exhaust and especially hubs going to the wide 5 tires. Those tires have big, thick, heavy hubs, and they're said to be the most durable for crossover crashes or bumps and bangs that you find at the Indianapolis Speedrome. Our final inspection run down here as we wait for a chance to start this race. The pace vehicle brings them all the way down to the start-finish line and waiting for the radio control and command to turn these drivers loose. We've gone through something like about 60 cars that have had a chance to take place in this 3-hour figure-8 endurance race at the Indianapolis Speedrome. Kenny St. John, one of the interesting things is that even though we've had about 60 cars with a chance to race, we still have only about 30 out there on the track.
Well, with the substitution rule they use here, you know, when one guy becomes disabled or something, they bring in a new car. But I think we're up to about 30 right now. These guys aren't going away. Wayne Arnold, the 12 cars lead, and Mike St. John, 2. They're the only ones on the lead lap. 12 and 2 are on the same lap.
I didn't know your scores.
Pace vehicle lets the field go as we come down to the green. Making a big jump on the outside is the number 116 of Harmon, passing several cars as he goes into the first turn. From this restart, the first car in line is the number 7 of Klontz. There's the number 12 of Arnold using some traffic to try to move past both of them on the outside of turn number 3 and 4. Underneath them, you've got the number 116 of Harmon as they come out of number 4 and come to and through the intersection, supplanting the number 86 of Bill Plunk. They continue to run in that close formation with Harmon and the 116 racing side by side with the number 12 of Wayne Arnold. And there's Danny Turner's car coming on through. Danny Turner charging into turn number 3, trying to cut down to the inside of several cars. They bump and bang and slam it ahead of him. He goes underneath Troy Terry's car. Now onto the 4th turn, looking for room in the crossover, just barely finding it. Danny Turner coming to the inside of turn number 1 and 2, right behind Robbie Loving's machine, trying to track him down as he goes through that second corner to the crossover, watching as John and Jack Dawsey cut through the intersection. Now has to watch for the number 83 of Country Brown as he goes through that intersection. Through all of this, Ronnie Klontz slows the number 7 in the crossover, and that allows Wayne Arnold to get that much farther ahead of him. But even ahead of Wayne Arnold, you've got the number 116 car, Rance Harmon, who streaks away from all of those drivers and tries to take an even bigger advantage on the racetrack. Harmon Harmon is pulling away from Arnold, but now Arnold gets back on the throttle as Jeff Heiser gets out of the way. Oh, watch out as the number 2 car almost gets hit by the number 66 at close quarters of the intersection. Drivers are 3 and 4 abreast as they somehow keep on going. And now we see the number 27 of Eddie Deal has spun yet again in a big cloud of smoke, but somehow restarts and continues. Harmon, the number 116, looks at an empty intersection, and Arnold follows him through. There's Klontz trying to stay ahead of the number 2X car of Whitman, and moving on the number 18 car of Heiser. As Arnold and Harmon come through the intersection, there's Arnold to the inside of Harmon, looking for and taking a spot away, making the pass through turns number 3 and 4, and finding the crossover empty for them at this time. As Harmon, our indication is for our scores now at the intersection. Watch out as Harmon moves around Arnold and gets that position there, and Klontz tries to get through the intersection along with the number 6 of Jack Dawsey Jr. Arnold, according to our scorers for the time being, leads this race with the number 2 Mike St. John in second spot. The indication we now get from the scorers is that Harmon is trying to keep from going another lap down as he races there at the crossover. The number 4, Bruce Penny, almost pulled in front of Kapori, Harmon and Arnold, and pulled out of the way just in time. There's the number 66 car, Benedict, spinning over in turn number 4. He is facing the wrong direction. So far, everybody is splitting around him, but we see the 66 car does not move. We see a bit of backfire as he tries to get the car restarted and does so, but it's going to take him a while to get that car back underway. Wayne Arnold and Rance Harmon do the dance of danger all the way around the Indianapolis Speedrome, going through turns number 3 and 4, looking at the crossover, trying to find an opening. This time they have that opening, but everybody else kind of meanders through there, some fast, some slow, all the managing to get on through. Now big challenge for Wayne Arnold as he comes to the inside, bouncing over the marker tires, trying to go underneath those drivers in 2 and 3 abreast racing as Shisholka slows down to keep from running into number 86 of Clark, and Aguilar and Lee almost collided as they went through the intersection at slow speed. Wayne Arnold cuts to the outside of all of those drivers, bringing with him Rance Harmon as they go through the crossover. Now they look to the inside of Brown's number 44. Arnold makes that pass, almost drifts up into the number 13 of Kenny Payne, and watches out for the number 26 of Manny Aguilar. Aguilar and Arnold going through turns number 1 and 2 pretty much side by side. Now the crossover, they watch out for the number 24, and as they come into turn number 3, we see one of the drivers coming off the racetrack. That's the number 66 car. That's the car out of Michigan, and he drops out of the contest. One car goes up in a cloud of smoke. Big trouble, Rob. It's Rance Harmon. He has a broken radiator or a blown engine and has put a lot of fluid on the track. That ends Rance Harmon's chances of winning the 3-hour figure-8 endurance race. He's going to be there in the south lobe of the infield for a long time. I'm not sure if he was involved in the collision or what. Did you see him hit anything?
I didn't see it. I'm pretty sure he might have lost the motor, dumped an awful lot of fluid in a hurry up in number 1 turn. This number 1 turn is going to remain slick there for quite some time. He also
knows that Dave Lambert has stopped his car on the outside of the exit of turn number 2. We're going yellow because of those 2 circumstances, because of the fluid on the racetrack and because of the stalled number 04 car of Dave Lambert. We earlier saw Scott Farr go off the racetrack. The 04 car of Dave Lambert is stalled. Rance Harmon is trying to get the car to move, and as he moves away, he leaves a puddle of oil behind him. That's clear indication of motor failure. The shovel deposits the cement dust onto the racetrack. One of the workers goes in there with a broom and sweeps it through there, hoping the cement dust absorbs the oil that spilled from Rance Harmon's number 116 car when he stalled and pulled into the infield. The race cars have to be careful that they don't run over the track workers as they work out there with the broom. And Rance Harmon, who waits for a chance to pull into line, will have to have his time in the pit area to have that car looked at after his chance to win the race goes up literally in a cloud of smoke and oil. And right behind him, one of his competitors, one of his compatriots from the Sportsdrome, Jerry Whitten, will give him a push. But again, every time that Harmon stalls the car, he leaves another puddle of oil on the racetrack. Harmon will take the long push into the pit area with Witten pushing him all the way. Harmon's machine will go out of the race. It'll remain to be seen whether he can get back into the race after his trouble. At the same time, the wrecker hooks up to the 0-4 car of Dave Lambert, and the driver, who was the 12th alternate in this race, will go off on the back of the wrecker. So the carpenter from the Flat Rock Speedway will go off on the back of the hook, while everybody else will keep on racing. Wayne Arnold, with his 3 victories in hand, looking for a 4th one at the Indianapolis Speedrome. A whole bunch of sponsors on this car, such as Kenny's Auto Sales, American Tire and Service, Aid Chicken Auto Parts, Jones Engineering, and Interstate Truck Parts. So here's the way it shows now at the Indianapolis Speedrome as we go through lap number 175. The indication from the scorers now is that Wayne Arnold is the only driver left on the lead lap. That Arnold has himself a 3-lap advantage over the number 2 of Mike St. John and a 4-lap advantage over Ronnie Clontz, the number 7. That's the way it was when we had lap number 175. It's 183 now. Those numbers will have been changed because Ronnie Clontz made a pit stop and probably is about 6 laps down after making his 2nd stop of the race. We've done whatever work is possible on the racetrack to clean up the oil that spilled from Rance Harmon's car. Kenny, you know that's got to be a big disappointment to Rance, who had himself a good chance to win, was trying to take care of the car, but the car said no.
Yeah, I remember back the 10th anniversary for the 3-hour world champion. Rance Harmon won it. Mr. Stiles paid $10,000 that day. They raced down around the Louisville, Kentucky area. Just a good team. A fellow named Ozzie owns that 116 car. Just a class act.
As the carpenter from Michigan, Dave Lambert, goes off on the back of the Pennington Wrecker hook, we watch for the auto body shop worker Wayne Arnold to come back to the green flag for the restart of this race. Eddie Deal next to him works in an aerospace company on the south side of Indianapolis. They work metal there. Has picked up Southern CarQuest sponsorship on Deal's number 27 as we go back to the green flag of the restart of this race. Trouble. 5 cars, 6 cars, 7 cars collide over in turn number 1. It's a parking lot with the car of Troy Terry on top of Danny Gaddis' machine. The racetrack is blocked with a dozen cars stacked up. Here come the leaders at full power. Where are they going to go? They find the tiniest of gaps to the inside and keep on going. Everybody manages to disengage with that one with only a handful of cars. Buchholz in the 69, Clark in the 86 appear to be hooked together, or they're trying to push each other out of the way. Aguilar in the number 26 may be the only driver to be stalled here as we continue to run under green. It's a crowded situation there as they try to cut down to the inside of these cars that appear to be stalled. From that chain reaction mess on the restart, Clark's 86, Aguilar's 26, and the number 95 of Hull are stuck. And there's Boyd Butcher with his problem. Butcher in 22 and Hull in 95 back out of the way. We'll go to yellow because of the stalled cars in the southeast corner of the racetrack. The pace car will pick up Wayne Arnold as the leader. Dwayne Lee, the number 1, and Mike St. John at the number 2 will get laps back. Unofficial reckoning will put them 2 laps behind the leader, Wayne Arnold. And Mike St. John almost gets collected by the number 13 of Kenny Payne as the 86 of Bill Clark backs off the track and gets hit hard by the number 27 of Eddie Deal under caution. I don't believe that one, Mike St. John.
Tell you what, I don't know what's going to happen there. I don't understand it. The 27 car just run up on top of it.
mounted him rudely in front of all of these people. Bill Clark, the number 86, stalled over at the southeast corner of the racetrack, was trying to back the car out of the way. Eddie Deal came charging on through and just ran over him. And it's not like Clark wasn't there. It's not like Deal shouldn't have been able to see him. And Clark is angry. He's going over there and giving Deal a piece of his mind. Clark already had some damage to that car, but it wasn't ripped up that bad. I mean, this is a mess and a half.
I'll tell you, that Hart's Auto Parts cars tonight just having a rough time. That Hart's and the Indy Towing, they need some records for some of their cars tonight.
Yeah, the irony of this so far is that the Indy Towing wreckers are mostly picking up the Indy Towing service cars and taking them off the racetrack. They're getting enough they're getting enough work from their own cars on this racetrack to keep them busy for a week. Clark works as a route driver for one of the soft drink bottlers here in the Indianapolis area, and I'm sure that he was not fizzing over that time when Eddie Deal came and mounted him like he was trying to take the cap off of his engine. Well, the wrecker picks Deal's car up and moves it over to the point where they can get those cars disengaged. Notice that through this entire sequence, Deal never got out of his car. Well, Clark got out of his machine and looks at the ripped up engine compartment of that car. I mean, normally in a wreck you expect to have some bodywork and suspension damage, but you don't expect to have somebody take the top off your engine.
No, that was quite unique. I really didn't see when it happened there. I seen him when he launched. Evidently, they put those big Goodyears up over each other, and they just kind of humped up on top.
The circumstance was that Clark was backing up at the number 86 car after getting involved in that four-car chain reaction melee over in turn number 1. Clark was backing up under the yellow, hoping to get the car off the racetrack, and suddenly, here's Deal charging on through. He came and ran into and up on top of Clark's car. Which one? There are several. Paging Jack Sanders to the women's restrooms outside of the Indianapolis Speedrome concession stand. This sounds like an odd announcement, but you understand it's an emergency. Paging Jack Sanders to the women's restroom outside of the Indianapolis Speedrome main grandstand. Again, paging Jack Sanders to the women's restroom outside of the Indianapolis Speedrome main grandstand. Never told anybody to go to the bathroom.
Yeah.
Up as we see Danny Turner trying to get to the front of this field to get some laps back, but cannot touch the number 12 of Wayne Arnold. He's some distance back. If I interpret our scoring correctly, the number 1 of Dwayne Lee and the number 2 of Mike St. John are running second and third, but 2 laps down. Dwayne Lee storms ahead of St. John as they go through 3 and 4. They finish 189 laps as Wayne Arnold finishes 191. The time remains the same for all of these drivers, working in the middle of the 47th minute of the second hour of this 3-hour race. At the intersection, Mike Hughes pulls across the bowels of a half dozen drivers, slowing them down. Wayne Arnold keeps on going through 3 and 4 and finishes that circuit. We watch for the number 1 of Dwayne Lee, and he is on the throttle and on the throttle hard. Figures he has a couple of laps to make up and does not want to lose any ground. Dwayne Lee goes through the third and fourth turns as Wayne Arnold watches the crossover. Wayne Arnold is in a position where maybe all he has to do is to watch out for the other traffic. Wayne Arnold works the second and turn, now heads to the intersection, hesitates, looks for a hole, finds a tiny one, almost runs into Jack Dawsey Jr. as the rest of the field comes out of that second turn, also looking for room at that crossover. Smoke from Country Brown's number 83. He keeps on going. Everybody else does as well. They almost sideswipe each other with the crossover as Jeff Catron slows down for a moment in the number 92 and pulls off to one side, but that's not far enough out of the way, but not far enough in the way to cause trouble, and he pulls through the intersection. Through all of this, Wayne Arnold holds on to the lead. Looks to the backside of Donnie Kafori's number 83, who almost runs into Ray Gaddis, is almost forced down into Arnold. Arnold just kept on going like that was just a typical confrontation. When he run as many figure eight races as Arnold has, that was just part of the job. We see that Buck holds to stop the number 69 car on the backstretch. That'll take him out of contention for a while. Wayne Arnold around Jeff Shosholka's car. Looks for room at the crossover and finds none. Hooked together are Gaddis and number 87 of Danny Turner. Gaddis looks for the room and gets on going as Turner disengages and keeps on circling around the racetrack. Big pack of drivers with Wayne Arnold in the middle of it, trying to move around the number 6 of Dawsey and the number, watch out of the crossover, almost running into number 4 of Bruce Tunney, but somehow they keep on going. As Wayne Arnold puts that particular memory behind him, he comes out of turn number 2, looks at the crossover, watches for Brown's machine, and keeps on going. Dwayne Lee sees the number 4 of Tunney and the number 87 of Turner bump each other as they go through the intersection, but they disengage and keep rolling. Cuts to the crossover as Brown almost gets caught by the number 7 of Ronnie Klantz. We watch Danny Turner almost running into Dwayne Lee's number 7. Danny Turner now tries to close up on the number 24 of Curtis McMurtry. Works on McMurtry, sees slower traffic ahead, gets just barely through there ahead of the number 1 of Dwayne Lee, and 3 cars have crashed in turn number 2. The number 6 of Jack Dawsey Jr. has plowed the number 13 of Kenny Payne, and the number 22 of Floyd Butcher plows into both of those cars as this brings out a yellow flag. And again, Kenny Sizemore, the Indy Towing Service car, has wrecked, and the Indy Towing Service wreckers have to get him.
That Indy Towing's having a rough night. It looks like the red and white 6 up in the air over there, reminiscent of a stunt car driver.
And there goes car number 6. He's
I stand corrected. That was not the number 6 of Jack Dawsey Jr. That's the number 61 of Cecil Carr that ran into the back of the number 13 of Kenny Payne and almost flipped in front of that crowd over there in turn number 2. Now you're going to see the field deliberately cut inside this marker tire. The field must go inside the marker tire because the racetrack is blocked. This is not a lap violation for these cars. This is not a lap violation for these cars. The cars must go underneath the second turn marker tire for the wreckers to stage and remove the wrecked cars. Again, this is not a lap violation for these cars to go inside of the marker tire. They must go inside the marker because of the wreck cleanup. This is not a lap violation.
I didn't see that. That must have been something.
Yeah. What are you looking for? Oh, you still have a wife? This is going to be a complicated cleanup work. First, Boyd Butcher backs his car out of the way. That will allow the workers to let Cecil Carr out of his machine. Cecil doesn't care how they clean this up. He's already out of his machine. The longtime Indianapolis Speedrome veteran walks away. Cecil Carr started this year driving for part-time driver and race promoter Chuck Hargraves, then picked up this ride in Joe Simpson's machine. As you see Cecil's Carr's machine up on 2 wreckers. If they don't drop that car or damage it any further, there's always the chance that Cecil could get back into that machine and back into the fight. All of this happens as we near the end of the second of the 3 hours in this endurance contest at the Indianapolis Speedrome. One Indy Towing Service wrecker has the front of Carr's machine. The second towing rig has the car aloft. Now, Kenny Payne's machine was in the middle of that as well. They're gradually putting Cecil's car back on the wheels. Back wheels, and now the front wheels are being loaded down. Maybe Carr walked away too soon. Maybe it might be possible to actually drive that car away, but of course Cecil isn't going to bother with that. He's already left the track. Left the track, I say, left the racing surface. He's probably back in the pit area telling some amazing stories about what it's like to be in midair and not come back down. One wrecker takes the number 61 of Cecil Carr, the other one the number 13 of Kenny Payne. Both of those cars coming off on the hooks. As we finish our cleanup work, you can see the scrubs of black and gray on the wall where the cars got into the concrete, where the rubber-on-rubber contact may have been a factor in the machines launching into the air. As the Indy Towing Service wreckers finish their work and bring the machines of Payne and Cecil Carr off the track, well, the Pennington wrecker has Payne's car. The Indy Towing Service wrecker has Carr's machine. We're just about set for another start of this contest. Give us this indication, the leader being the number 12 of Wayne Arnold. Second place, the number 1 of Mike St. John. As we come back to the restart, the leader is the number 12 of Wayne Arnold. And shown in second place, we've got the number 1 of Dwayne Lee, 2 laps down. Third place, the number 2 of Mike St. John, 3 laps down. Fourth place, the number 7 of Ronnie Klontz, 4 laps down. Fifth place, the number 5 of Bill Teddy Jr., 8 laps down. In the middle of this maelstrom, you have Danny Turner, the number 87. You watch as Turner tries to cut through that heavy traffic. Watches out for Curtis Murphy's car on his left. Passes Eddie Steele's number 27. Now storms after Robert Amos's number 39. Looks for Amos's machine as he goes through 3 and 4. Above him, you've got the number 20 of Joe Lowe. Joe Lowe gets away from Turner. Turner now closes up, running in a cloud of smoke with Walker DeWitt's number 68. Turner to the outside through turns number 3 and 4, trying to run with Mike St. John. Almost runs into Mike St. John as he comes through the crossover. Turner now has to watch the cut from between cars. Heavy crossover traffic. The Tunney brothers almost run into each other. Still riding with Danny Turner as he watches out for Boyd Richards, number 22. Turner now closes up on Mike St. John again, shown as the third place car. There's the number 68 of Walker DeWitt, slid to a stop at the crossover with smoke coming from that number 68 car in a vulnerable position as DeWitt's number 68. And also McMurtry's number 24. Will either of those cars have a chance to go once again? So far the answer is no. Klontz and Tunney slow down in the crossover, look for some place to go. Klontz's car doesn't restart very well. DeWitt gets going again, so does McMurtry. Now it's Heiser who's stuck in the intersection. Heiser can't go forward. He backs up, now gets the car engaged in gear as we see the number 73 of Preston Maxwell stop on the back stretch with smoke pouring from his car. watching as Wayne Arnold looks for room, and the crossover almost doesn't find any. There's a lot of heavy traffic there, and they just barely get on through. We promised you thrills at every instant in the Indianapolis Speedrome, and that has happened, with cars crashing and ramming each other, and every race through that intersection being an adventure, a journey into the unknown, where you go in and you don't know if you're going to come out. Wayne Arnold out of number 4 looks for room in the crossover. He's there and through, and so is Mike St. John. But ahead, you've got the now convertible number 14 of Robbie Fry. They've taken the hood panel off. Gaddis spins over in number 3, getting helped out of the way by the number 19 car of Pat Pierce. Those drivers run into each other. They're trying to disengage. Gaddis and Pierce get the cars back under power, but they do so very slowly. Donnie Kafori almost takes out Dwayne Lee and Wayne Arnold at the crossover. And now Curtis McMurtry looking for racing room. McMurtry and Gaddis have stopped. There's the car of Danny Turner, almost get clipped by the number 5 of Bill Tenney Jr. After that moment where almost the entire field crashed in the crossover, we get disengaged and roll back in green. As Ronnie Klotz and Wayne Arnold almost crash in the intersection, we see that Dwayne Lee, the number 1, is trying to stay on the racetrack at full speed. Through the crossover, finds a tiny gap. Now alone for a moment. Not that much alone as he closes up on the number 16 of Robbie Loving. And bouncing off the marker tire, trying to catch up to Dwayne Lee. Look through the intersection as Arnold passes Lee for the moment, trying to put Dwayne Lee 3 laps down. Now they're still racing wheel to wheel. Dwayne Lee goes through, looks for a gap, does not find one. I don't know how Dwayne Lee got through that time. There was the tiniest of moving gaps, and he found it every time. Coming to the close of the second hour of this 3-hour figure-8 endurance race in the Indianapolis Speedrome. Wayne Arnold trying to keep his car on the track. Arnold's already made a pit stop or two. And we don't know if he has to stop for fuel again or not. Here the field charges into turn number 3. Always looking for some sort of gap, knowing that right behind them there's a series of near disasters in the crossover. Wayne Arnold out of number 4, looking for room through the crossover and finds it as he moves up on a Michigan car and outside of the number 6. We're in trouble. Somebody's lost the wheel. It's Bill Tenney Jr. who's lost the left rear. That tire has come off, and he storms off the racetrack. And there's Dwayne Lee, who was run into the back of the number 83 of Country Brown as we go to yellow. And hitting the wall again in turn number 2 is the number 04 car of Dave Lambert, who's crashed twice in turn number 2. Bill Tenney Jr. off the track, leaving his left rear behind. And there's a bumper or a rub rail from one car that's not too far from where the wheel literally came off. I believe we had 2 cars that lost wheels at pretty much the same time. One of them was Bob Buchholz's number 69. That's not too far away from the number 04 of Lambert. Lambert's machine has come to grief twice in the second turn in this race. We're now past the 2-hour mark. We're working into the final hour of this 3-hour figure-8 endurance classic at the Indianapolis Speedrome. Wayne Arnold holds on to the lead, trying to hold on to what he has to go. And Ronnie Klotz goes in and makes another pit stop. On our last reckoning, the scores told us that Klotz was 4 laps down. But I doubt he's going to lose the position, because the next driver to him was the number 5 of Bill Tenney Jr., who was 8 laps down. And Tenney completely threw the left rear on his car, and he's completely out of it. Bob Buchholz and Bill Tenney Jr. both lost their left rears at about the same time. Buchholz with the drum brake on the rear, the drum separated from the tire and pulled everything off. For Tenney, it was a more catastrophic failure. He runs a full racing suspension on that car, which means that something big had to break. And coming off the track for the second time on the back of a hook is the driver from Michigan, Dave Lambert, who's had himself a lot of adventures over there. If this was a 3-turn track, he'd be in great shape, but it's that second turn that has given him all sorts of trouble. He's crashed over there twice. Lambert comes off the racetrack once again. Lambert, who works as a carpenter over in Michigan and races regularly at the Flat Rock Speedway, will remember this visit to the Indianapolis Speedrome as a frustrating evening. But just about everybody is frustrated so far. Here's Bill Tenney Jr. back onto the racetrack. Bill Tenney Jr. cutting in front of the pace car at the crossover as Lambert smiles to his friends as he goes off for what might be the last time, but remember, he could come back, as Bill Tenney Jr. did. When we saw Tenney's car throw a wheel, we thought he was done for. Apparently just some studs broke loose, so they just bolted a new tire on the car and put it back onto the track. For the moment, Arnold races with the number 18 of Jeff Heiser, now pulls ahead of him as he goes down the backstretch. We notice Dwayne Lee in the number 1 car. He's 2 or 3 laps down. We'll double check with the scores to find out how many times he has to move back around Wayne Arnold's car to get a chance to get back on the lead lap. This is the circumstance where Arnold has the advantage, but a driver like Lee, if he gets lucky, and watch out of the crossovers, Dwayne Lee and Wayne Arnold almost ran into Ben Benedict's 866, and now I have to watch out for Danny Gaddis, number 44, who comes back on the racetrack. This time of the crossover, it's the number 22. Boy, Butcher slamming in as Benedict, who ran into the number 75 car and took out the number 44. Then Benedict bounced off the number 75 car in the crossover of Dennis Cherry, then bounced up into Brown's number 44. Brown pulls away, leaving a trail of fluid on the track. Then Benedict spins the car around and looks like he wants to get his machine back in the fight, and does so. Except he's going to make a stop at the pits first before he gets back going again. Dwayne Lee has moved around Wayne Arnold to try to get one of his laps back. Dwayne Lee has won 2 consecutive Pro Stock championships at the Indianapolis Speedrome, but he's never won of these 3-hour races as Wayne Arnold gets between the number 18 and 19 cars, just barely, between Pierce and Heiser. Working the 5th minute of this race and the last hour of it, as we continue to count down to the final moments of this contest, with Dwayne Lee in the lead, at the lead of the serial, but he's still a couple of laps down behind the number 12 of Wayne Arnold. It's Dwayne Lee's now goal to try and pick this traffic, to pick his advantage. Watching in the crossover, almost running into the side of Danny Gaddis' car. The crossover, always the focus of action of the Indianapolis Speedrome. As you look through that crossover, we see Wayne Arnold going through 1 and 2, trying to stay with the number 1 of Dwayne Lee. At this moment, car's in trouble. The car of Pierce, who is the top rookie in the race at this point, has stuffed Bill Tunney Jr.'s number 5. The top rookie and the top member of the Tunney family have nailed each other over in turn number 3. Pierce backs up and tries to get going again. So does Tunney, as we see a car come off the racetrack and make a stop. That's Danny Gaddis' machine. Tunney wants to make a pit stop as well, as Bill Whiteman was slow for a moment and almost got plowed by another machine. As Pierce gets back into the fight, with his kangaroo symbol on the back of that car, we see that Dwayne Lee is gradually stretching out an advantage over Wayne Arnold. If Lee can keep on doing that, if he can get a couple of laps back, that would give him a chance to race for the lead. We watch Whiteman and McMurtry stopped at the crossover waiting for traffic like they're waiting at a stoplight. They get going again. We were wondering if those cars had stalled or not. We also noticed that Dwayne Lee, the number 86 of Bill Clark, after he got mounted by the Eddie Deal, number 27, is back on the racetrack. In fact, both Deal and Clark are back on the surface. Scorers now give us the information that Dwayne Lee is only 1 lap down. So in the last hour of the race, this story develops. that Dwayne Lee is trying to stay in front. If we get another yellow, Dwayne Lee has a chance to get back up to Wayne Arnold and get his lap back. And we wonder if there's going to be yet another caution in this contest.
You have to hand it to those two leaders. Wayne Arnold in the 12 and the one car running second. They're really bringing a torrid pace up through there. I just wonder if they can hold it off for another full hour.
Let's see what happens as they move into traffic. The way you drive traffic is as important as the way you drive the crossover. Dwayne Lee watches out for the Jack Dandy car at the intersection. Again, Lee needs to stay in front of Wayne Arnold. Lee almost runs into the number 4, Bruce Tunney, and that allows Wayne Arnold back around him and puts him 2 laps down. When Lee tried to cut down to the inside of Bruce Tunney's car, he ran into Tunney as Tunney comes down and hits the car of Johnny Hubbard, and that put Wayne Arnold back in front of Dwayne Lee. Lee has got to do it all over again. Wayne Arnold through turns number 1 and 2 with Dwayne Lee in hot pursuit, trying to move around Donnie Kafori's number 83. Knocks Kafori out of the way in his enthusiasm to try to stay up to Wayne Arnold's car. Donnie Kafori got spun out. Let's see if Kafori gets out of the way as the leaders come out of 3 and 4. Kafori's machine hit and spun out by Dwayne Lee, not able to move for the time being as the number 30 of Bill Whiteman spins, and also collecting each other. Witten, as there's Mike St. John running in the back end of the number 99 of Donnie Garrigus. Whiteman's number 30, Witten's number 2X, the number 77 of Dale Knaus, the number 20 of Joe Lowe, all crash into each other over in turn number 4. Everybody gets disengaged with the exception of Whiteman and Lowe, and that makes it very important now for Dwayne Lee to try to catch up to Wayne Arnold, but Arnold has pulled Dwayne Lee several lanes. We see smoke coming from the 18 of Johnny Hubbard from the radiator of that car as we continue
Yellow.
going to yellow because the cars have stuffed each other in turn number 3 and 4. Pace cars now picked up Wayne Arnold. Dwayne Lee was not able to stay in front of Wayne Arnold. The important point being there when Dwayne Lee ran into it, almost into the car of, literally into the car of Bruce Tunney. That meant that Wayne Arnold got around him and stayed that 1 lap gap that's so important to Whiteman. Whiteman pushed off the track. Joe Lowe backs his number 20 out of the way. As soon as those cars are disposed from the racetrack, we'll bring things back to green with 50 minutes to go in this contest.
14 cars over.
The only thing to pass on is the checkers. Just wanted to punch her up and see how well So Joe Lowe goes off in the back of the hook, and the Pennington wrecker's gotten a lot of work out here at the Indianapolis Speedrome as we've seen a whole battalion of those wreckers here. We've got enough wreckers to tow away the world, it seems sometimes here, Kenny St. John.
Tell you what, they've come in handy here tonight because this has been a rough and tumble one from the start. The 14 car, the Country Auto Parts Bill Price. Looks like he might be overheating. He was involved in an earlier crash. They're going back to the pit repair. 14 in the pit.
Joe Lowe bids us farewell with the number 20. He works as a carpet layer. Tommy Lowe owns the car that's sponsored by Radon Lab and Arlington Dental Lab. Joe Lowe, 57 years old. Are you that old, Kenny?
Oh, I have to remember with Joe racing when I was a kid. I used to come out here and watch Joe Lowe race. Quite a fella.
Following him off, you talk about a contrast in ages, is Robbie Fry. Robbie Fry, a second-generation driver here at the Indianapolis Speedrome. You raced against his father.
Yeah, Bill's quite a fella. I know him on the track and off the track. He's quite a race driver himself, and he's bringing this Robbie boy up. I think he's going to make it. I think he's going to be a good one.
Robbie works over at Dad's Business Country Auto Parts as we come out of turn number 4 and come back to the green flag. Dwayne Lee gets the jump on Wayne Arnold this time. Again, by our reckoning, Pat Pierce is the leading rookie. He's 4th on the racetrack at this point, but the key point being here that Dwayne Lee, the number 1, gets the advantage on Wayne Arnold on that restart as he comes to the crossover and finds the gap. Wayne Arnold running through in 2nd spot on the racetrack, but of course Wayne, the number 12, has the overall lead. Headed northbound, Dwayne Lee has to hit the brakes. Wayne Arnold does not, and as Gaddis pulls ahead of Dwayne Lee, that advantage that Dwayne had fought so hard for and planned so carefully for on the restart has now gone. Now Wayne Arnold has to hold up at the intersection, but so did Dwayne Lee, so no advantage one way or the other. That's got to be frustrating, Kenny St. John, when you fight for an advantage and it disappears in one moment of the crossover.
That's the way it can happen in this figure 8 race. In the blink of an eye can make a straightaway difference. Simple as that. You had the one car working hard. He's still working hard to get the lap. Now the brakes fall.
But they are running in tandem as they head into the 3rd turn of the leader's 243rd lap and close out the 14th minute of the final hour of this race. At the crossover, they have to watch out for witness number 2. And we also have to see the number 27 of Neal, who spins yet again. He spins pretty much on a regular basis. As they come to the crossover, there's Arnold and Lee racing wheel to wheel. Mike St. John continues to circulate around the racetrack, going underneath the number 18 car. Now at the intersection has to watch out for Arnold and Lee as Mike St. John continues to make laps. The defending champion of this race has had his frustrations, but the car is still in one piece. He's had his collisions more than once. But Mike St. John continues to run strongly and still has a chance to win this race. Danny Turner continues to mix it up as well in the middle of a big pack of cars. Donnie Kafori directly ahead of Danny Turner as he comes out of turn number 2. Looks to the crossover. It's clear for the moment, but Turner had to slow down because of the cars that were charging through there. And Danny Turner finds himself alone because the yellow has come out for the number 27 of Eddie Thiel, who is stalled down in the inside of the approach to turn number 1 of this sequence of the race. 45 minutes to go in this contest.
Second alternate is in there racing. 18J.
Dwayne Lee gets some attention from the track officials because he is told he cannot go around the pace vehicle in that manner. Dwayne Lee now comes all the way around. Wait a minute. The circumstance... We'll watch Dwayne Lee, his situation, to find out if this makes a difference in the scoring about whether Dwayne Lee... Yeah, Dwayne Lee did... Let's find a way to explain this. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Dwayne Lee kept on going around Wayne Arnold when the yellow came out, but of course you can't pass under the yellow. Lee thought that he might be able to make up a lap that way. Could not do so. This is not NASCAR racing where you race to the start-finish line when a yellow comes out. And so Dwayne Lee has had 2 chances to make up laps on Wayne Arnold, but is not able to do so. And Kenny Sizemore, had it been a different circumstance, had Dwayne Lee stayed in front of Wayne Arnold during these 2 cautions, he'd be up there and battling for the lead instead of still struggling for a chance to be in the lead.
You're right. The race is still between the 1, the 2, and the 12 car. You got the old cagey veteran Wayne Arnold out there. He's going to put on a pace that he's real comfortable with. The red number 1 he's aggressive. The 2 car got a couple laps off the pace. He's trying desperately to make them up. I think the race will be between those 3.
Dwayne Lee is a second-generation guy, not necessarily the youngest anymore. He's 33 years old, has a couple of children, and works as an inspector. Right now, he's been inspecting the rear end of Wayne Arnold's car more than he would like to be able to do so. He'd like to get out in front and make some laps back to HD Brown Murphy number 1. And you know that it's a big thing to win this 3-hour race because, frankly, Dwayne Lee has proven his way, he's proven himself as a driver in any other way he could win. He's dominated Indianapolis Speedrome racing this year. He has won the more figure eights than anybody else. And as we come down to the restart of this one, let's see what happens. I think we could get a green here very quickly. And we will get the restart right now as the pace vehicle pulls out of the way. And the green flag shown by Carl Hall. And let's see Dwayne Lee go to the outside, the difficult outside pass to try to take Wayne Arnold for the position as the rest of the cars get through that first turn okay. And here's the story once again. Dwayne Lee gets up into the first spot. Wayne Arnold in second on the racetrack still leads, but Dwayne Lee gets closer to moving back on the lead lap every time he jumps on the start and gets Wayne Arnold in that manner. The problem is that Dwayne Lee goes so fast that he finds himself in trouble at the intersection, and that gives Wayne Arnold a chance to move that lap ahead of Dwayne Lee again. It's been a big battle between those cars as they come around the crossover. Dwayne Lee gets the break this time. Two slower cars pull ahead of Arnold at the last time, and that allows Lee to get his lap, get back to the point where he's just about ready to challenge for the lead lap. As we score it right now, Dwayne Lee is one lap down. He has one more lap to get back to Wayne Arnold. The leader is the number 12 of Wayne Arnold. In second place, one lap down is Dwayne Lee. And now Wayne Arnold is hit by the number 18 of Jeff Heiser, pulled across his bows in a crossover. Did that damage Arnold's car? At first, the answer is no. But Wayne Arnold almost got wrecked by Jeff Heiser. And Arnold is driving much harder as a result. Maybe too hard. Maybe Arnold is angry as a result. If that's the case, if you drive here angry in the crossover, if you drive angry, you crash. If you drive smart, you survive.
You have to take a moment there to collect his thoughts because he did get wrapped up a little bit going through the crossover. And actually the number 2 car, Mike St. John, he needs to pass Wayne Arnold to get a lap back. The one car got one back. Mike St. John's hunting one right now.
Mike St. John's shown by our scorers in third place, 3 laps down. Fourth place, the number 5 of Bill Tenney Jr., 11 laps down. Fifth place is the number A16 of Ben Benedict, 17 laps down. And in sixth, Robbie Loving, rather, in the A16. The A66 is Benedict. The A16 is Robbie Loving, who showed at 17 laps down. And sixth place is the number 4 of Bruce Tunney, who is 19 laps down. Wayne Arnold, after getting caught by the number 18 of Jeff Heiser and almost wrecked out of the race, now has moved back to try to get to the number 1 of Dwayne Lee and put him another 2 laps down. At the crossover, Joe Lowe and the number 19 car of Pierce almost crashed into each other. Dwayne Lee struggling to stay in front of Wayne Arnold. At this point, Dwayne Lee again would be 1 lap down if another caution came out. We see that the number 13 of Kenny Payne has got back onto the racetrack. Bodywork missing after his big crash. But again, the big story is between the number 1 of Dwayne Lee and the number 12 of Wayne Arnold. Those drivers are battling to try to stay in a relative position where there's going to be no change. Now there's Wayne Arnold right behind Danny Turner's number 87, trying to close up on the number 61 of Cecil Carr. That's an important point. The car got back onto the racetrack after that accident that saw his car lifted in the air on top of Kenny Payne's car. In fact, both of those machines are back on the track. There's Wayne Arnold bouncing off the 99 of Donnie Garrigus as he comes down to finish the 257th lap, and later 3 cars crash. The number 61 of Cecil Carr, the number 63 car, and the number 40 of John Dawsey. Those 3 machines have stuffed each other over in turn number 4. Now Bill Clark is one of those involved in that crash. I thought that was Carr again. It was Bill Clark. All of those machines, after a lap or so sitting there, get disengaged. And Scott Parr, Bill Clark, and John Dawsey rolling in. And again, it's 2 of the Joe Simpson cars that run into each other in turn number 2. Through all of this, oh, the crossover, number 1 of Dwayne Lee almost crashed and almost got caught by the number 12 of Wayne Arnold. Dwayne Lee is hoping for a caution so he can go only 1 lap down to Wayne Arnold, but he does not want to be the cause of that caution. 3 drivers run in close quarters through turns number 3 and 4 as we see Rusty Sigmund in trouble with flat tires slowing down in the intersection area. Sigmund at the number 46 appears to have stalled. Let's see if Sigmund can get going again. Yes, he has. We thought that Sigmund might have a flat tire. Apparently, we're incorrect in that matter. Now we go back to this pitch battle between the drivers that are first and second as we see David Cummey slip through the intersection of the number 78. There's Dwayne Lee going through, following through the number 12 of Wayne Arnold. Arnold trying to catch Lee and put him 2 laps down. Lee trying to stay in front, so if he gets a caution, he can go back through. And at the crossovers, another close quarters call for all of those drivers. Also on the racetrack, we have the first of our alternates who did not actually qualify who's on the racetrack. That's the number 63 V car, Mike Ostway. At the intersection, cars all over the place. We thought we were going to have ourselves a 10-car wreck. And Dwayne Lee ran into the back of Jack Dandy's car and broke his right front suspension. Dwayne Lee was so engrossed in trying to keep from being left by Wayne Arnold that he ran into the back of Dandy's car and has broken the tie rod on the left right front. Dwayne Lee now storms off the track and into the pit after that costly collision made a major difference in this race. It may have eliminated most of the pressure on Wayne Arnold. And now, with 37 minutes to go in this race, Wayne Arnold's major competition on the racetrack may have disappeared, Kenny St. John. Does that ease the pressure?
I think a veteran driver like Wayne, he sees it that way. You got the number 2 car, Mike St. John's, obviously going to move up to the second hole. We've got about 35 minutes to go. It should be exciting.
Mike St. John shown by scorers 3 laps down. Or is it 2 laps down? Watch out at the intersection as the number 27 car gets hit at the back, and that breaks part of the rear part of that machine. Oh, watch out, the 27 car, one of our non-qualified alternates, stopped in the middle of the track. And we finally go to yellow. That's a frightening moment. The 27 car of Buster Seitz got onto the racetrack just now in the last couple of minutes.
Where did he come from?
Excuse me, that's not Buster Seitz. That's Alan Norris in the number 27. That was a Buster Seitz car, but Alan Norris has the car. Norris got hit in the back end at one point. You can see where it destroyed the rear end of that machine up almost to the firewall. Almost broke off the rear bumper.
Just got here, didn't he?
He just got onto the racetrack, maybe did 2 laps, got hit in the rear and stopped at the crossover. He'll get maybe $50 and they'll send him home.
He's going to be exciting.
Under caution, Wayne Arnold holds on to the lead. His advantage still shown as 3 laps over the number 2 of Mike St. John. Third place would be the number 5 of Bill Tenney Jr., 11 laps down. And in 4th position, we'd have the number 16 of Robbie Loving. He had been 17 laps down, but I think he may have lost the position through that pit stop. Position number 4 to the number 4 of Bruce Tunney, who's about 19 laps down. So through this entire sequence of racing, all of these drivers that had dreams of the lead have found themselves slipping farther and farther back. With 34 minutes of racing left here at the Indianapolis Speedrome, we'll bring them back to green. And Wayne Arnold will lead them all to the start-finish line and back into the contest. Count about 25 cars on the track as we come back to the green. 25 cars out of the more than 70 that qualified, out of the more than 80 that hope to have a chance to run. And Wayne Arnold once again gets out, comes down to the intersection and looks for some racing room. Sigmund spins and almost runs into Jack Dandy. Sigmund keeps on going, but he makes an extra loop up the north end of the racetrack that will not count. If you look closely at the back end of Sigmund's car, it says welfare of license plate he has wired in there. And Dwayne Lee gets back onto the racetrack. I will unofficially score Dwayne Lee in 3rd place. But Dwayne Lee probably lost about 6 laps in that one. He actually may have fallen into 4th place behind the number 5 of Bill Tenney Jr. In any case, unless any number of drivers have hard times upcoming, that means that Dwayne Lee has virtually no chance of winning this race, although stranger things have happened as Jack Dandy meanders through the intersection and has a tiny hole. And one of those with which he was battling was the number 12 of Wayne Arnold. Arnold through the crossover finds a bit of room. Everybody else, there's Sigmund spinning through turn number 2. Out of the second turn, Sigmund spun, almost pulled in front of Wayne Arnold. Arnold almost ran into the car, Preston Maxwell, and now the Jack Dandy and Ronnie Klont's cars almost collide, and they almost also take out the number 87 of Danny Turner. All of that happening in one trip through the crossover, and Wayne Arnold managed to avoid it all. As Rusty Sigmund tries to get his car restaged, there's the car of Pierce running into the number 22 of Boyd Butcher, leaving him stalled, and now he's hit by Donnie Garrigus, who rips off his own right front and destroys the front end of Boyd Butcher's car as well. Garrigus keeps on going. He's lost the entire right front suspension. Garrigus hasn't slowed down one bit. Garrigus drives the car off the track. Garrigus keeps on going, and he has not even hit the brakes once as he storms into the pit area. As Boyd Butcher brings his car off the track with the right front deranged, Garrigus put on a show after the wreck. I mean, he had that entire right front corner torn off the car, Kenny St. John. It was like it was just the bump that got splattered on the windshield. He didn't even think of slowing down.
It was a violent crash right there. He got spun out coming down through the Boyd Butcher, I believe it was, got parked, and Garrigus was in behind lap traffic, and he darted out, and it was hello.
One of our track workers trying to pick up Donnie Garrigus right front. He needs two guys because it tore off the tire, the wheel, the brake, the lower A-arm, the ball joint, the brake line. That's about 80 pounds of metal that he left on the racetrack.
It was quite a significant wreck there. I think both cars were damaged on the right front. He might have lost those cars in the season.
Yeah, I would think so. Oh, by the way, Donnie, if you want your equipment back, I think we'll have it on the track truck after the race is over. Come to think of it, Kenny St. John, if you take all the parts that have been torn off race cars tonight, you can build yourself another full race car.
Come to think of something else here. I don't believe Arnold's pitted for fuel yet. I know St. John was in with a flat at about 100 laps. I don't know if they topped off the tank at that time. But if Wayne hadn't went for fuel, we're going to see him dart in here before this thing's over.
I think Wayne has made a pit stop already. I get the impression he did make a stop during one of those periods earlier and did lose some distance and managed to make up the gap when everybody else was going crazy at various other times. Again, it's my impression, Kenny, that he may have made a stop, although I can't be 100% sure of this. As the pace vehicle turns them loose, Wayne Arnold takes it easy on the restart. And once again, Dwayne Lee is out there. Dwayne Lee with his tie rod repaired after he ran into Jack Dandy's car. And look at this, Wayne Arnold is racing him again. This is a race that has no meaning except for pride, because Wayne Arnold has such a big advantage that it really doesn't make any difference. As it stands right now, Dwayne Lee is in third place, 9 laps down. Dwayne has gotten around Wayne Arnold. I think Wayne finally realized what was going on and let him go. But here's Mike St. John closing up to Wayne Arnold. Again, we got ourselves less than 1/2 hour of racing left. But somebody has lost a tire and wheel. It's Jack Dawson Jr., I think, that has lost it. No, who has? Somebody has lost a tire and wheel off their car. It's rolling through the intersection. Is it the number 77 of Dale Canals, I think? I think Dale Canals has lost it. Yeah, this tire, as we see it roll through there, it looks intact. Yeah, Preston Maxwell lost it off the number 73. That's where it came from. It looks intact, like the wheel nuts simply sheared off. Maybe they didn't have things tightened properly. Preston Maxwell loses the left rear. And I get the feeling that Mike St. John was a little frustrated there because he was trying to jump back and get up to take a lap advantage back from Wayne Arnold. So if St. John had managed to get it on Arnold, that would have put him only 2 laps down.
I think you're going to look for that. I think Mike's going to try to pull a whole shot coming off that 4th turn, hit it for the flag. He's going to be looking for some laps. It's getting late. It's time to go.
With 28 minutes left to go in this contest, what incentive does Wayne Arnold have to race with Mike St. John? St. John needs a miracle. If Wayne Arnold pushes St. John too hard and loses track of the crossover, he crashes out.
Oh, Wayne will just set up a rhythm. He's looking for a bird dog right now. Mike might be the leader he's looking for. Mike's looking for laps back. Another, he's got his lap back there. You get a yellow flag. Could be a whole different ball game just in a few.
Wayne Arnold on the restart sees Mike St. John pulling ahead of him as we go. Trouble in turn number 1. 3 cars have crashed. And that's one of them is the 18 of Hubbard. Another one is the number 63 car. The third car is the number 04 machine of Lambert. Lambert has crashed 4 times tonight. Lambert's trying to get restarted, but can't drive any farther forward than that because Hubbard is stalled as well. Through all of this, Mike St. John stays ahead of Wayne Arnold. Arnold now realizes what the game is, knows that if the yellow comes out, St. John gets a lap back, tries to charge up through there. While we watch those guys race, we see that Lambert does get the car rolling again. And that means we'll stay under green. Now let's see if Arnold, realizing that we'll stay under green and there's no yellow and no immediate danger of losing this lap all at once, simply let St. John loose. The answer is no. Arnold looks like he wants to race St. John at this juncture. But no, now Arnold starts to let St. John go as if that is possible. About 3 lengths difference between them on the racetrack, but still about 3 laps distance, 2 laps distance between those drivers in the scoring. St. John watches out for Dwayne Lee and others in the crossover. Ronnie Clontz, Curtis McMurtry, and Loving all get through behind those drivers that careen through the crossover. St. John's car pushes high. Wayne Arnold tries to challenge him. St. John darts away as they go to the third turn. Arnold gets sideways through 3 and 4. And St. John pulls away as we almost have a crossover crash between the cars of Pierce and of Jack Dandy. They both hit the brakes. They both kept from hitting each other, and they both stormed away. At the crossover, let's watch and see who gets through this time. It's the number 2, Mike St. John, that stays ahead of the number 12 of Wayne Arnold. In turn, Arnold stays ahead of the number 4 of Bruce Tunney as the field comes out of number 4, and they watch as Spar's machine almost gets in the way. Wayne Arnold storms over the marker tire, almost running into the number 27 of Eddie Neal. And Arnold is within a couple of lengths of the number 2 of St. John as they come down and finish the 285th lap of the leader, and we're midway through the 35th minute of the final hour of this race. Arnold and Mike St. John continue to run in lockstep in tandem as they come through the heavy track, which is always a feature of these 3-hour figure 8 endurance contests. They storm out of turn number 2, clearly faster than everybody else. We also notice that Dwayne Lee and Ronnie Clontz are having a good time among themselves, racing nose to tail, trying to get laps back, hoping that they'll be able to catch up to Wayne Arnold. And Arnold is not able to hold up his position with Mike St. John. St. John bumps Bill Tunney Jr. coming out of turn number 2 as he wants to race with Tunney and race around the number 6 of Jack Dawsey Jr. Neal has stalled the number 27. I don't think anybody hit Neal. I think the car just simply stopped running. At the crossover, there's Pierce getting hit by the car of Whitten. Both of those drivers managed to keep on going as Curtis Murphy almost takes off Clontz and the number 1 of Dwayne Lee. But the number 27 of Eddie Neal has stalled. And Mike St. John almost forced Arnold into Neal's machine. Going through turn number 3.
He almost
out of number 4. The number 19 car of Pierce is in the middle of the racetrack. Kenny St. John, you say that Pierce almost got upside down. Now, here's the circumstance. Indications are that Wayne Arnold might have to stop his car for fuel.
The 2 car gets a lap back from your leader. Wayne Arnold's the leader, number 12. The 2 cars running a good second. He's a couple laps out. He's trying to make up some time.
2, 3, and 4 as we see one of the Indy Towing Service cars getting set to come back onto the racetrack. Bill Clark's number 86 rejoins the fray with both sides bashed in. We notice that St. John bumps the marker tire, storms through the crossover. Wayne Arnold maintains his pursuit. 291 laps. That's getting close to about 75 miles of racing out here at the Indianapolis Speedrome. And as we close, there's a car spinning that's Pearson, rather far. The number is 63 that's spun over in turn number 3. He gets going once again. Again, St. John leads Arnold through turns number 3 and 4. Still a couple of laps in this difference between those drivers. As they watch out for the car of 18 Jeff Heiser, somehow they managed to get on through there by taking it easy instead of storming around. St. John through the intersection. They watch out for Charles Graham's number 82. Graham's car might be be a factor as that number 82 car stalled. No, he's managing to crawl forward, so will remain in the green. Now in heavy traffic, the number 2 of St. John and the number 12 of Arnold cutting through there. Again, some indication that fuel might be a factor in this one. And Arnold continues to race St. John. There's a theory among drivers that if you take it easy, you actually cause yourself more trouble. That it's best to simply keep the hammer down and race as hard as possible.
Yeah, these guys have developed a rhythm for the last 2 hours and 38 minutes, and they like to stay into it. Get this thing over here. I'm anxious to see if there's a fuel stop going to be made. I think one of them might run dry.
And now here's the circumstance. It's still about a 3-lap gap between the first and second place cars. If Wayne Arnold does have to make a fuel stop, assuming he doesn't run into Jack Dandy like he almost did at the crossover there, that fuel stop, even under green, would take about 3 laps. He'd have to get back to the pit area, he'd have to dump into fuel, and then get going once again. And that would take about 3 laps consistent, with the laps running about 18 or 19 seconds under green flag racing at this point. 20 minutes and 45 seconds left to go in this contest. Dwayne Lee and Bruce Tunney race each other from the intersection. And Arnold stays behind St. John. That gap has now grown as Arnold simply lets St. John go. But again, the circumstance we watch is to find out if the number 12 car does have to make a stop. Minutes left to go in the 3-hour figure-8 endurance race at the Indianapolis Speedrome. The close quarter calls and the crossover continue unabated. Fewer cars on the racetrack than before. Only the purest survivors last this long in the Indianapolis Speedrome. Of the nearly 80 drivers that had dreams of glory in the Indianapolis Speedrome this evening, these are the best that are left. At the crossover, Wayne Arnold almost runs into the collision between Jack Dandy and Donnie Kafori. That almost destroyed the leader. And now watch out. Wayne Arnold has to watch out for Jack Dandy that pulled into his path again. Jack Dandy pulls off the racetrack for a pit stop, but Dandy almost had 2 shots at taking the leader out. Jack Dandy makes his pit stop. Donnie Kafori also stays on the racetrack. And here's Wayne Arnold watching out of the crossover for about 5 cars. 19 minutes of racing remaining in the Indianapolis Speedrome as we see some smoke from Dale, rather from number 75 car, Dennis Cherry. Cherry slows down for a moment. He gets going once again.
Wayne Arnold in the pits. The leader is in the pits. Wayne Arnold.
So Wayne Arnold makes his pit stop under green. Now watch Mike St. John to find out how many laps he makes up. Mike St. John has about 3 laps to make up. He comes around and works through turns number 3 and 4 as the guys make the pit stop at the 2-lap distance. Mike St. John makes the first lap up. That makes Mike St. John about 1 lap down at this point. Now, Mike St. John cuts through the north end of the racetrack. He's trying to get on the lead lap. If Wayne Arnold doesn't appear at that gate soon, Mike St. John will go back onto the lead lap. He comes out of turn number 3 and 4. Mike St. John comes down and he works onto the lead lap. Wayne Arnold is back at the gate. Wayne Arnold holds onto the lead by my reckoning, but Mike St. John has cut the gap back to 1/2 lap with 17 minutes and 53 seconds left to go in this race. No, I stand corrected. I stand corrected. Our Speedrome scorers say that Mike St. John did not get back on the lead lap, but he's still 1 lap down.
So he's hustling up to the front. He's going to close it up here and change the complexion a little bit.
As crossover crash. There's the number 7 of Klotz crashing with the number 63. The number 7 of Klotz crashes with the number 63 at Farr and collects the hard luck number 27 of Eddie Deal once again. And Farr has a flat tire on the left rear. Deal keeps on going. Farr does not. Here comes the balance of the field. Farr is facing the wrong direction. No indication yet as the drivers go all directions, but now we finally go to caution. Same lap. Our scorers details on that earlier observation. Wayne Arnold and Mike St. John are on the same lap. Mike St. John has now made up the 2-lap disadvantage he had to Wayne Arnold. They will run on the lead lap for the balance of this contest. The pace car comes out to pick up Wayne Arnold. Mike St. John running in second spot. Those are the only drivers within striking distance of the lead. The third place car is the number 1 of Dwayne Lee.
This is going to end up to be about a 50-lap trophy dash, ladies and gentlemen. The 2 of the fastest figure 8 drivers in the world, they're going to be running for position just in a moment. It is official. They are on the same lap, 307 laps apiece for your leader, number 12, and number 2, Mike St. John.
And now we prepare for the final sequence of this race of the Indianapolis Speedrome. We'll need some time to get the Farr car off the racetrack. Farr is one of those guys that's just bounced and banged off of everybody else at this track, but somehow keep on going.
You know, he had a flat right front. The pace car caught him there, and I know I got him 1, but I never did see. I didn't think he lost any in position in racing.
Yeah, they were racing in green.
No, I'm talking about Mike. He blew the right front, hit Curtis McMurphy about 100 laps in or whatever.
Oh, okay.
He went off as the yellow come out, but he got trapped, so he lost 1. But I didn't see him lose any in racing. You know, to the leader.
The drama of the 3-hour figure 8 endurance contest, the Indianapolis Speedrome, comes down to the final 15 minutes. That's about 45 laps of racing if they go green the rest of the way. The leader is the number 12 of Wayne Arnold. Second position goes to the number 2 of Mike St. John. Wayne will have the advantage on the brake when we come back to green. St. John has 7 cars to pass, make that 8 machines if you include the number 1 of Dwayne Lee, who would like to be able to go up through there. It may be that Lee serves as St. John's escort through this traffic. Almost might work whether he wants to or not as a blocking block for Dwayne Lee to show him the path, for Mike St. John rather, to show him the path through this traffic as we come back to green for the final 45 or so laps of this race.
The cars are thinned down now. A while ago we had 30 and 35 cars and we're down to about 16. That's when figure 8 racing becomes its most dangerous. It's late in the race, the track thins out, and these guys get to really moving now.
We come to green and we watch and see as Mike St. John passes several cars as we move into the first turn of the 310th lap of the leader. Working the 47th minute of this race. Mike St. John leaves Dwayne Lee behind and sets off after Wayne Arnold.
Wayne's from the 5th shock. He ain't getting through up here. 5th shock is broken.
Wayne Arnold going through turns number 3 and 4, number 1 and 2 rather, as he comes northbound to the 47th lap. The gap now shows at about 1 turn plus maybe 2 turns now as Wayne Arnold goes through 3 and 4. Mike St. John tries to put on the charge as we go through and finish this race, working the 47th minute of this contest. Time for us now to go to the stopwatch and gauge the distance between these 2 cars. Using the 4th turn marker tire as our gauge. Now let's use the start-finish line as our gauge. The gap between first and second place shows on my stopwatch. Watch out as Wayne Arnold had to hesitate at the crossover. Mike St. John charges through without having to wait. Again, the gap on my stopwatch now shows at 1.6 seconds. As they head through the crossover, Wayne Arnold holds on to the lead and goes wide through turn number 1 and 2. Mike St. John tries to close down the gap, which shows at 1.5 seconds. He closes to within a few car lengths in turn number 3 and 4 of the 312th lap. Mike St. John reels him in as they watch out for Bruce Tunney at the intersection. It's down to 3 car lengths.
About 20 or 30 laps into this race, I noticed the 12 and the 2 car. They looked like they was playing a game there
Watch
earlier
out!
today.
Mike St. John almost crashed by Jack Dandy at the intersection.
These 2 two guys, they hooked it up early this afternoon and knew they was going to race each other for this money tonight. Here they go.
Wayne
This is what
Arnold
it's all about, right here.
by the
12
car
and 2.
of Ben Benedict. That puts Mike St. John just that much closer as they come out of turn number 2, head northbound with 11 minutes and 50 seconds to go. Wayne Arnold guesses low. Mike St. John guesses high. Wayne Arnold cuts beneath the traffic. Mike St. John puts on the power, watches out for Bruce Tunney, who gets out of the way of the leaders, and the advantage goes to Wayne Arnold through a chilling moment with both cars almost destroyed.
This is getting good right here. We've got 12 minutes to go. The two best figure 8 racers on the track right now. Let's let them shoot it out.
Through this, Mike St. John loses the advantage. Wayne Arnold was only a couple of car lengths ahead. Now as we use the stopwatch, Wayne Arnold bounced over the marker tire. He may have broken his car, and Mike St. John storms into the lead. Wayne Arnold hesitated, but he bounced over the marker tire and the car leapt into the air, and Mike St. John comes to the lead as we finish lap number 318 of the leaders. Now it's going to get good as we come out of number 4. First, we watch Mike Pointer in the number 111 car as Pointer stalled in the crossover. Pointer has stalled and he's hit by Charles Graham and pushed into the intersection. Pointer lobbying for a yellow as we come to the line. Mike St. John leads Wayne Arnold across the start-finish line with 10.5 minutes left to go. Mike Pointer stalled the number 111 car headed northbound and was hit by Charles Graham, and that brings out a caution.
Now, that Wayne Arnold guy in that 12 and that St. John in 2, I noticed early in the night, they looked like they was cat and mouse to me. I think I might have proved myself right here today. They hooked it up. They've got this thing down to about 11 minutes to go, and now they're racing for the marble.
10 minutes and 10 seconds left, and it's a two-car fight to the
what
finish.
they did.
Kenny St. John, any race announcer knows that there is one phrase which sounds like a cliche but can often be true. If the leaders take each other out, watch for the third place driver. And that third place guy, 5 laps down to the number 1 is Dwayne Lee. If those guys up in front get too involved and take each other out, Dwayne Lee's got himself a good seat in the house.
I think the red 1 car, I believe he slowed down a little bit. Dwayne set such a forward pace tonight. I believe he might have wore out some equipment. But between the 2 and the 12, these guys are pros. They're not going to take each other out. They rub wheels. Rubbing is racing. They ain't going to take each other out. They're going to the front.
Charles Graham, front end of that car ripped up in the collision with the number 111 of Mike Pointer. Graham's car looks like it's going to fall off at any moment. Looks like they're going to completely rip the front end of that car off. It was weakened so much in the collision. I hope they can get the car off the track. The pressure of towing that car may destroy it. They literally tear it in half before they get it off the track. Fewer than 9 minutes remaining in this contest. And we stand on the verge of unknown territory at the Indianapolis Speedrome. In the 15-year history of this race, we have never had a contest where the top 2 drivers shot it out at the end. We have never had a 3-hour figure 8 endurance race where the top 2 drivers finished on the lead lap. As it stands right now, it goes between Mike St. John and Wayne Arnold. No holds barred, no quarters asked or given, just 8 minutes and 45 seconds of hard, intense racing. The leader as we come back to the restart, the number 2 of Mike St. John. Second place, the number 12 of Wayne Arnold. Third place, 6 laps down, the number 1 of Dwayne Lee. Fourth place, 19 laps down, the number 5 of Bill Tunney Jr. Fifth place, 20 laps down, the number 4 of Bruce Tunney.
We're going to enjoy this last 8 minutes here immensely between these 2 fine figure 8 drivers, but it's going to seem like 2 hours to these boys. They're going for the bread.
7 minutes and 47 seconds left. Number 3, Mike St. John charges into the first turn. Wayne Arnold tries to hold on. Mike St. John pulls away, looking for 2 in a row here at the Indianapolis Speedrome. St. John has the advantage as he heads the intersection, watches out for Pierce, who slows down and cuts through the crossover, just barely makes it go. Working the 323rd lap of this one with 8 minutes and 18 seconds left to go in this contest. St. John holds on to the advantage. Wayne Arnold might be dropping back. Does Does he have a damaged suspension part or two in that car? Did his hit of the marker tire that launched the machine in the air damage the car? In any case, from an even restart, St. John has pulled a big advantage. St. John had the disadvantage of the crossover because he had to slow down for the cars of Benedict and Heiser, but this time he gets to the crossover smoothly, and St. John has the advantage. Arnold scrambling, scraping for any advantage as he goes to turns number 1 and 2, and he runs still behind Mike St. John. With 6 minutes and 45 seconds left to go in this race, St. John holds on to the advantage. St. John through turns number 1 and 2, looking for the gap in seconds between those cars. By my stopwatch, it's a gap of 1.8 seconds.
Wayne's car might be slowing down a little bit. I don't think he's getting as good a forward bite as he did early in the evening. 6 minutes to go seems like an eternity.
An important point that we saw them come out of turn number 4. Wayne Arnold's almost lost control of the car. Almost had the machine completely spin out through that left-hand turn. As Mike St. John starts to pull away, let's see what happens. Watch the rear end of Wayne Arnold's car through turns number 3 and 4, and it looks like the car is getting loose on it. And Wayne Arnold blocked by several slower cars that are racing among themselves. St. John in the crossover, watches out, hits the brake a couple of times. That diminishes his gap as he has to also watch out for Joe Lowe's machine. By my watch, that cut the gap down to 1.1 seconds. At the crossover, Kafari and Dossie almost ran into the side of Wayne Arnold's car, and Wayne has to go underneath Cumbie's number 12. As he continues to try to race as hard as he can, realizing the greatest prize in the Indianapolis Speedrome lies only a few car lengths ahead. Wayne Arnold blocked by cars in the crossover. I show the gap back up to 2 seconds. St. John manages to extend his gap as the clock continues to count down. Nothing stops the clock tonight at the Indianapolis Speedrome. 5 minutes. 5 minutes left to go on the clock. 5 minutes after an entire year of racing for the decision of the 3-hour figure 8 endurance contest. Mike St. John holds on to the advantage. Wayne Arnold through the crossover. The gap is now 3 1/3 seconds. St. John almost ran into the back of Bill Clark coming out of turn number 4 and had to slow down. Wayne Arnold had an easier path through that time, but as we watch the cars go through the first and second corners, Wayne Arnold almost stopped by Joe Lowe going through turn number 2. Lowe in the intersection, almost hit by several cars as he slows down. Through all of that, the gap appears to remain fairly consistent. Wayne Arnold finds himself crossing the line 3.3 seconds back. That series of near disasters chills the blood. Watch out of the crossover, Roddy Clops and Robbie Loving almost running into Mike St. John and Wayne Arnold, but somehow they keep on going through. St. John crosses the line and finishes 333rd lap. Wayne Arnold comes across the stripe 3 3/4 seconds behind. With fewer than 4 minutes to go in this race, can Mike St. John continue to negotiate the traffic?
It'll be worth $6,000 to pass this traffic. It's as simple as that. If he can get through, he's got to win. If he gets jammed up, you'll see Wayne Arnold come up there and battle for the lead.
Winner gets $6,000. Second place gets $3,000. This means more than money. This means more than just some cash to take home. It is pride. It is the family name. It is the honor and the glory that will be decided here at the Indianapolis Speedrome. As we watch Bruce Tunney and the car bump each other at the intersection, the gap is down to 2.6 seconds. Wayne Arnold actually has managed to pick up a bit of an advantage. But the clock continues to tick down with no heart whatsoever. Mark it at 3 minutes to go. 3 minutes to go. A gap of 3.5 seconds between Mike St. John and Wayne Arnold. They storm through turns number 3 and 4 at the north end of the racetrack, battling each other, battling the traffic, battling the crossover, battling the clock. Mike St. John finishes 337 laps. Wayne Arnold comes across that same stripe, 4 3/4 seconds behind. Mike St. John appears to have this race under control. If he can control his emotion, if he can control the traffic, if he can maintain that gap at the crossover, Mike St. John has this race won. At the close of this 3-hour figure 8 endurance race in the Indianapolis Speedrome, you see the finest survivors of the Indianapolis Speedrome continue to Michigan racetracks have fought all year in these contests. Now the best runner, the finest survivor, the fiercest warrior are those that are left with 2 minutes to go in the 3-hour figure eight endurance contest. A scant handful of minutes remain. Mike St. John holds on to the advantage. Wayne Arnold tries to catch up and falls farther and farther behind.
Minutes traffic.
But look at the heavy traffic ahead of Mike St. John. Mike St. John must cut through massive traffic while Wayne Arnold runs relatively free. A minute and a half to go. Mike St. John runs just ahead of Wayne Lee. Watches cars sideways all around him. Wayne Arnold tries to take advantage of the traffic. Can Wayne Arnold close up with a minute and 20 seconds left to go? Mike St. John cuts through the traffic. He still has heavy racing traffic all around him. But Wayne Arnold had to hit the brakes to keep him smashing into Ronnie Clones for the crossover, and so that's a walk. Mark it down as Dwayne Lee and Mike St. John almost crash into each other as they finish this lap. Mark it down, 1 minute left to go. Mike St. John has the advantage at about 3 laps. Second place is Wayne Arnold, 3.1 seconds back. Mike St. John is now clear, goes to the traffic. He's got something of a rocket share, but he still has about 8 cars ahead of him that are battling each other hard. And Mike St. John cuts through them like they aren't even there. Mike St. John tries to hold on with 34 seconds left to go in this contest. We're coming down to the close of this one, and we'll count down the final seconds and then watch for the checkered flag to signal the end of the 3-hour figure eight endurance race of the Indianapolis Speedrome, the closest race in history. If it finishes right now with the leaders on the lead lap. Mike St. John goes through with 45 seconds left to go. Mike St. John continues to run with maybe 2 more laps left to go. Here we are counting it down to 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and the 3-hour distance has expired. But Mike St. John still must finish 1 more lap. Mike St. John at the north end of the racetrack watches Robbie Loving as he circles through here. As they come out of turn number 3 and 4, the checkered flag flies, and Mike St. John wins the 3-hour figure eight endurance race at the Indianapolis Speedrome for the 2nd year in a row by a gap of 5.4 seconds over Wayne Arnold.
Ladies and gentlemen, that's about as good a figure eight as I've ever seen anywhere, and I've been all over the country. Mike St. John, Wayne Arnold, all these boys put on a good show tonight. That car there he's driving, the number 2 is owned by Charlie Cole Racing, and don't look like he got a fender mark on it tonight. Tim Harding and American Tire Company is a big sponsor with those people, as well as Golden Hair Designs out of Greenwood, Indiana. Mike St. John is 1991 world champion.
15 3-hour figure eight endurance races have been run at the Indianapolis Speedrome since the year 1977. Half of those races have belonged to one family. Half of those races have belonged to one pair of brothers. 5 of them to Kenny St. John, and 3 out of the last 5 have gone to Mike St. John. St. John was not able to win the track championship at the Indianapolis Speedrome, did not have a steady ride through most of this year's racing at the Indianapolis Speedrome. St. John promises us that in 1991 he will return to challenge for the track championship. He will have himself the best equipment. He will have himself the best racing team possible. And Mike St. John takes his first step toward the 1992 championship with the 1991 victory. Mike St. John also has another special distinction. He is one of only 2 drivers to defend his Indianapolis Speedrome 3-hour figure eight endurance championship. The only other driver to win consecutive races is Kenny St. John, our color commentator.
That's quite an accomplishment to do that. Nobody's ever backed it up. I had a good run going there back in the late 70s, early 80s. Nobody's been able to repeat. He just did it here today. 1990 and 1991 world champion figure eight driver. Just look at the car. It's not roughed up. Early on, I made the call that Wayne Arnold in the 12 car and Mike in the 2 car. They was driving each other's car. I knew what they was doing right there. They was hunting for a leader. Each guy got out there, did his part. They brought it down to the last 15 minutes and put on a heck of a show. Tremendous figure eight.
Let nothing here cut down the effort that has been put forward by Wayne Arnold. Let nothing diminish Wayne Arnold's effort here at the Indianapolis Speedrome. He put on a great show as well. But there's only one driver who can call himself a winner tonight at the Indianapolis Speedrome. That is the new winner of the Indianapolis Speedrome race. 2 in a row for Mike St. John. John Stiles, you're in the middle of the biggest party in Indianapolis.
Very happy Mike St. John crew. He had a rough season here in the Speedrome 1991. He picked up a new team this year. Throughout the middle of the season, he picked up with Kent Krimmel. He's got American Tire and Service. He's resting a little bit right now. He's catching his breath. His team's all around him. They've got their shirts. They've got the finger #1 up. They are #1 for the World Championship, 15th annual 3-hour figure 8 endurance race. 2 years in a row for the #2, Mike St. John. All right, what's the score? Hey, what's the score?
Speedrome next week. Next week, we'll bring these drivers back for the final fling. Next Saturday night, the team championship, where Wayne Arnold and Mike St. John and the Tunney brothers and Heiser and Turner and Klontz and Lee and all the others have a chance to come back and battle each other. There will be a rematch at the Indianapolis Speedrome, and right in the middle of it, the triumphant Mike St. John.
I'm going to make my way in here to Mike St. John. He finally got his breath. He stood on the car. Your arms are up high. Congratulations, Mike St. John. 2 in a row, 3 for the 3 total. His arms are tired. He can't even hold the trophy right now. He's getting congratulations from sisters. Now, Mike, we're going to get you kisses and all that right now. You had a chance to catch up to Wayne Arnold. He had to make a pit stop. We figured it was for fuel, maybe put maybe even tire change. We don't know, but his car slowed down afterwards. Your brother Kenny made a comment as the color commentator saying that he may have broke his 5th shock. He couldn't handle the turns. He did slow down. You did get by him. This is the first race we've run in the 3-hour World Championship where we had 2 cars from the lead lap at the finish.
Well, I tell you what, you just don't get no better driver than Wayne Arnold. He is the most hardest driver that I've ever run against. And he drives you clean, and everybody says he's old and he's washed up. Boy, is that guy nowhere near washed up.
All right, there you go. You've had a rough season this year. You finally picked up a team with Kent Krimmel. You got yourself a American-made car. How's it run? Of course, it looks good tonight.
Well, we got about 100 more horses than we need in pro stock racing. But whenever it comes to big tires, I tell you what, the car flies. But what can I say? It just handled perfect. We got in a little accident early and cut a tire off, and we went ahead and gassed up while we was changing the tire, and we didn't have to pit no more.
You didn't have to pit more. That's the advantage of this race. Maybe 1 pit, maybe none. But of course, it was obvious. Wayne Arnold's pit stop was the causing factor of you gaining up and catching up with him. Did it look like he slowed down to you?
Yeah, once he got into that car, he did slow down. I seen him coming off South End, get into a car there. Then after that, seemed like me, he slowed.
All right, what about prospects for 1992? You've got the 15th annual World Championship figure 8 under your belt. 3 altogether, 2 in a row. What's happening next year for Mike St. John?
Well, I promise you, Mike St. John's coming back, and I'm going to dominate this racetrack next year. It ain't no Mickey Mouse stuff. I got 2 or 3 things going.
All right. What about the people that helped you with the car, the sponsors, the men, the pit crews, the arms, the hands?
Hey, I'll tell you what, my brother Tommy St. John come along and helped us, Bobby Ellett, Charlie Coalty, Tim Coffey, Roy, all my sponsors, American Tire and Service, Southeastern Auto Parts, Kelly Hair Designs. Hey, I'll tell you what, you wouldn't believe the sponsors that sat back and reared back for me, and whenever I needed the money, they come through, and Jeff and Darren at Interstate Truck Parts, they treat me like gold. I can go on and on, but I tell you what, they treat me like gold, and I love them.
All right, we're going to let you party with your clan here. Congratulations, Mike St. John. Good race on you.
Into the night with Mike St. John and his people. But for everybody that was running at the finish of the Indianapolis Speedrome 3-hour figure 8 endurance contest, there should be honors all around. Kenny St. John, I don't think people realize how difficult it is to run 3 hours in a race car under any circumstance, but to run 3 hours and to still be circulating the Indianapolis Speedrome at the end of this contest is a special distinction that shows your determination, the driver's daring, the crew members' ability, and more than a bit of luck turn in. I mean, everybody that ran to the end of this race was a true winner and a champion.
Yeah, these guys are all very accomplished race car drivers. To be able to come out here, like I say, and be subjected to so many chance after chance after chance of takeout, these guys are tremendous. You've seen the leaders, they went to the front, everybody else stayed in there plugging. I mean, it's a tremendous accomplishment, and everybody can't do it. It's a tough deal. This is the World Championship Figure 8.
Ladies and gentlemen, we now open the pit area for you to go and visit your favorite driver. The celebration will move into that pit area where you can meet Mike St. John and Tommy St. John, and even Kenny will be hanging around to go down and congratulate his brother. Kenny, while Mike's down there, Mike, hold on for a second. Kenny's got something to say to you, Mike.
Congratulations, little brother. You made it look easy. Good race. I knew what you and Wayne and the one car was hooked up. Pulled it off real nice. By the way, those St. John hats are on sale in the pits.
I should have known that there'd be a commercial side from Kenny St. John, a guy that never met a dollar he didn't like. We also have some special souvenirs for you down at the pit office. The Indianapolis Speedrome 50th anniversary weekend.